Hello, everyone. This is the Theodore Shoebat live stream for this week. Hope you guys are having a good Friday, and I hope you guys have a good weekend. But before the weekend comes, let's have some fun here in the Matrix. We are in the Matrix, which is the internet. So let's have some fun while we're in the Matrix. Hello, Robbie99. Hello, Philip Reese, Roasted Vegetables, Rusty Shackleford, Matt Mix, Susan Karokazi, Sweet Body Fit, and Kate Estrada Paz. Hello, everybody. Robbie99. Hello, Ted. Latest news from Germany is that the government is in financial crisis, so I have heard. That could fracture the traffic light coalition. There is a financial hole of 60 billion euros, according to Tagesschau. SPD would win 15%, CDU/CSU 31%, the Greens 15%, AFD 21%. So wouldn't that make AFD the second biggest party in such a case? And the left with 4%. Only the CDU, CSU, and the AFD will see an increase in 1%, while only the SPD will see a drop. Yeah, so this is something that reflects, truly, it reflects what is going on as far as the zeitgeist goes, as far as the political trends go. What's happening right now is the world is becoming very different, and that is an understatement. That is an understatement. The world is dramatically changing from what we have been used to for decades, and that is we have been used to center politics. We've been used to center left. We've been used to center right, but I don't want to be too loud. I noticed in my last live stream I was a little bit too loud. Trying to get that straw distance here. Let me see if I can lower down my mic volume just a little bit. I think it's good. Yeah, I think we're good. Okay, so what's happening right now is there is an immense change that is taking place. And I foresaw this years ago. I foresaw this back in 2016, early 2016, around, I want to say maybe late 2015, early 2016, I really began to foresee that the world was turning fascistic. People can say, well, Ted, the world was already fascist with George Bush. I mean, like, really fascist. I'm not talking about, like, I'm not talking about what internet warriors think is fascism, right? Like, you have these libertarian types online who are like, we're already living in fascism. Well, how do you know that? Well, there's police officers. If you have police officers, it's fascism. Right, of course. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about real fascism. Okay, we're talking like Nazism. That's what we're talking about. We are talking Nazism, a revival of Nazism. And it may not be like Schindler's List Nazism. By that I mean it may not look exactly like what Nazism was in the past, but I think it's going to be a revived form of Nazism with a different look. And the thing is that, and let me just say that we've been seeing signs of this for years. Back in 2017, I wrote about the rise of Geert-Wilders. Early 2016, I talked about the rise of the far right in Europe, how Europe is turning Nazistic. And what acted as a catalyst towards all of this, and I've said this a million times, was the refugee crisis. And I believe that the refugee crisis was a part of a strategy of tension. I can't prove that. I don't have the leaked out white paper that says, yeah, we're going to bring in 1 million refugees to revive fascism. But I suspect that's what it was. I suspect that it was a way to revive nationalism in Europe, to spark nationalism in Europe. And this, I believe, is in accordance to the Gladio Doctrine, which was being done during the Cold War, from the, I want to say, early 50s all the way into the early 90s. NATO had a program which was supposed to be a secret called Gladio. And the whole point of the Operation Gladio, was to revive nationalism. And this is why NATO supported far-right paramilitaries and also neo-Nazis. And going in, and it wasn't just the European far right. There was also Islamists as well that NATO was supporting. NATO supported the Mujahideen in Afghanistan. So it's not like what I'm saying is completely far-fetched. It has precedent in recent history, really recent history. We're talking decades ago. So when I saw the refugee crisis and how Angela Merkel was just acting so exuberant about it, I mean, that got me really suspicious. Like, why is this happening? You know? And I remember, having this suspicion back in the late time, or the late point of 2015. Right before 2016. I remember I got into a conversation with a Zionist. He was a hardcore Jewish Zionist, and he was like, do you see they're bringing in all these Muslim refugees? They're Muslims. They're taking over Europe. It's like they're bringing in these refugees. It's just crazy. Europe is just becoming completely suicidal. And I said to this guy, excuse me. I said to him, do you think the Germans are that stupid? The Germans aren't stupid people. The Germans have been around for a long time. German people have been around for thousands of years. They crushed the Roman Empire. They did. We talk about all the Muslims crushed the Roman Empire, 1453. That's true. The eastern half, right? What was left of the Roman Empire in the east. What crushed the Western Roman Empire? It wasn't the Muslims. It was not the Muslims, my friends. It was the... It wasn't the Muslims. It was the Germans. Bronzo says, why do you hate Muslims? I have not expressed any hatred at all in this live stream towards Muslim people. I've been talking about the rise of the far right, which uses hatred towards Muslims to bolster its own position. So you are officially... you just don't understand what I'm saying. You just don't understand what I'm saying. So... I really don't want you in this. I really don't want you in this stream because you don't understand anything I'm saying, and you misconstrue what I'm saying because you want to push your own viewpoint. So here's what I'm going to do for you, Mr. Bronzo. I'm going to save you from the misery of having to listen to my stream, and I'm going to throw you out. So here we go. Goodbye. Go to Mohammed Hijab. Go to the Dawah on YouTube. Go talk to the Muslims on YouTube. There you go. Goodbye. I just saved you. Have fun in Jannah. Have fun in Jannah with your 72 virgins with the eternally tight vaginas. That's what Islam teaches, by the way. Anyway, going back to what I was saying. So this Zionist guy, he was extremely upset with me because I said this, and he says, what's that supposed to mean? The Germans are smart people. The Germans are smart people. They're not stupid people. They've been around for thousands of years. They crushed the Roman Empire. The Romans couldn't defeat them. And that was it. Done. These aren't stupid people. So what's the point of bringing all these refugees? Well, I think there was multiple reasons why they brought the refugees in. I think one, it was to bring in cheap labor. Two, it was, I think, and this is, I could be wrong about this, but I think the Germans knew long ago that they would have to recruit soldiers for their military because America, and I'm going to talk a little bit more about this in a moment here, but America is still suffering from PTSD from the war in Iraq. So America doesn't want to be involved in interventionism. So the Europeans think, okay, we're gonna have to strengthen ourselves. So we need young people. We need young people. I'm going to change the music a little bit here, guys. We're going to go to Iran. I always start my streams with Russian Doomer music, and then I transition into like more Eastern music. So we're going into Persia now. So the Germans knew that they would have to strengthen their military. How would they do that? They need young blood to be in the military ranks. And I remember not too long after Germany started bringing these refugees in, I want to say late 2015, early 2016, the Germans were talking about allowing refugees to join the Bundeswehr, to join the German armed forces. The Middle Eastern people have more children than white people. This is just a fact. They tend to have more children than people who are white. This is not like a condemnation. This is just an observation. There is something to be said about this. Even in Israel, if you look at the population increases between the Ashkenazim Israelis and the Mitzrahim Israelis, you will see that the Mitzrahim Israelis have much more children. They have a much higher birth rate than the Ashkenazim. Ashkenazim are Jews who came from Europe. Mitzrahim are Jews whose recent ancestry came from the Middle East. They came from Morocco and North Africa. They came from Iraq. They came from Syria, etc., etc. So they have more children. It's not about multiple wives. It's not even really about that. They just have more kids. Even if you have what's the word? A monogamous Islamic marriage, they will have more children than a monogamous marriage between two Europeans, between two whites. This is just a fact. You can look at all the numbers. They have all the kids. Not all of them, but they have a lot of children. So there's a lot of young blood coming from the Middle East. Why is it this way? I have no idea. Maybe Middle Eastern people are just hornier by their nature. I don't know. They have more kids. They have sex more. White people, I don't know, they have sex once a month or something like that. From what I've heard, most of the people, a lot of the people complaining about marriage in the Western world, a lot of the people who say don't get married are white folks who say don't get married. And they say, well, you don't have any sex. And I've heard people talking about how their wives use sex as a weapon, and they say, I'm not going to give you sex unless you do this, that, and this, and I'm not going to give you sex unless it's like, once every 2 months or something like that. So they just don't have sex. White people just don't, they're not having as much. Now, they have a lot of sex in college and in high school. They have all the sex in the world. When they get married, that goes out the window. So, they just have more children. So, if you're going to strengthen your military, you're going to need a lot of young people to be in the military ranks. Now, the Muslims in Germany are still a minority. There's still more white Germans than they are Turkish or Middle Eastern people. What's the Muslim population in Germany? Let me just check it out real quick. Hold on. Quick Google. 5.5 million. I mean, that's still a minority. There's 60 million people living in Germany. 5.5 million is a lot of people, don't get me wrong, but it's still a minority nonetheless. So I think the Germans, they want to use these Muslims to be in the military, these young Muslims, and that may actually happen. But the Germans are going to have to really, really appeal to the Muslim population. It's like in Russia, do you know how many Muslims live in Russia? Do you know how many Muslims live in Russia? Like 20 million, 25 million Muslims live in Russia. I want to get the number. I think it's between 20 and freaking Google. Oh boy. Here we go. My internet's acting retarded again. Hold on, guys. So there's 14 million Muslims living in Russia. That's a lot of people. That's an entire country. Okay, and the Russians have done so far, I mean, they had a war back in the 90s with the Chechens and the Dagestanis, but nonetheless, the Russians have so far been doing a decent job in appealing to their Muslim population. I mean, a lot of Muslims are in the military. A lot of Muslims have been fighting for Russia against the Ukrainians. albeit there's also a good amount of Chechen Mujahideen fighting for the Ukrainians against the Russians as well. So I think the Germans, they want to appeal, to the Muslim population to get the military up. But I also think that the refugee crisis has been very helpful in the Muslim crisis has been, or the refugee crisis, I should say, which is mainly a Muslim crisis, has been very helpful in dividing Europe. The refugee crisis, hello, Vieko, zdravo. The refugee crisis has been very good at dividing Europe. And it has also stoked up nationalism in Europe. So it's done multiple things. It's provided a lot of young labor, a lot of young blood for potential military enlistment. But it's also stoked up nationalism, and it has caused division in Europe. It has caused division in the European Union to the point where the British left the EU, which was a serious deal. I mean, that Brexit was a very serious matter. So why is that important? Like, why is division significant? Well, division is significant because look at what's been going on in Europe. Look at what's been happening in the European Union. Geert Wilders of the Dutch Freedom Party, or Party of Freedom, however you call it, just dominated the election. Like Geert Wilders has dominated the election. Now, I remember hearing about Geert Wilders when I was in high school. I never trusted him. Even when I was in high school, I didn't like him. But I remember hearing about Geert Wilders in high school, when Geert Wilders had 0 seats. He had nothing. Nobody cared about Geert Wilders. Nobody wanted to talk about Geert Wilders unless it was a controversial, unless there was some kind of controversy against him. He was friends with Ayaan Hirsi Ali. He was part of that whole Van Gogh phenomena where there was a movie about wife beating that came from the Netherlands, and the director, some guy whose last name was Van Gogh, was stabbed to death, and Ayaan Hirsi Ali was all over that story, and Geert Wilders was all over that story. But Geert Wilders has been very, very patient. And his patience has paid off because he just dominated the Dutch election. That is crazy. Like, that is crazy. This is amazing, guys. We are living in surreal times. I remember, oh my God, I remember in high school thinking, okay, Geert Wilders, who's this guy? And all the American rightists were talking about him. Who supported Geert Wilders years ago, back in 2017 before that? I don't know about now, but years ago, okay? Almost a half a decade ago, I wrote about Geert Wilders and how he was getting most of his money from where? From the United States. And specifically from whom? From Horowitz. From David Horowitz. Of the Horowitz Freedom Center. That is where Geert Wilders got a lot of his money. From American Zionists. Or I should say a Zionist. But probably multiple, because there's different people who donate money into these sorts of projects. The Horowitz Freedom Center was a major financer for Geert Wilders. Now, isn't that interesting? You have a guy in the Netherlands winning a major election, and back in 2017, he won, I want to say, third or second place in the Dutch election in 2017. I want to see real quick. Let me just confirm something here. Dutch election. Geert Wilders, in 2017, in the Dutch general election, let's see. Geert Wilders got second place. He took 13% of the vote in 2017. He got 20 seats in the Dutch parliament. And people thought, oh, okay, whatever, blah, blah. And then he had some hurdles, in the next years, in the subsequent years. He had hurdles. He went down to third place, maybe a little bit lower. But now he's in number 1. And a lot of that money came from American Zionists. I don't want to sound like a conspiracy theorist, but this is a fact. You can look into this. You can look into this. Because after Geert Wilders won his victory in 2017, he won his big advancement in 2017, he made a speech for the Horowitz Center. It was either before the victory or after. I'm pretty certain it was after. But nonetheless, around the time of his victory, he made a speech in the Horowitz Center. He made a speech in the Horowitz Center. Why? Because that's who was paying him. And Geert Wilders is very Eurosceptic. He's a part of that Eurosceptic crowd, with Le Pen and AFD and what's his name? De Winters. I forgot his first name. Who's the guy from Belgium? He's a Flemish politician. Philip de Winter. So in Europe, there has been this group, a political gang of rightists who have been using the Islamic immigration situation to promote their own positions and to gain electoral victories. And this group consists of people like Philip de Winter, Marine Le Pen, Geert Wilders, AFD, the like. And this group has been around for a long, long time. Europe is dividing. Now, here's the thing about Geert Wilders. You got a fan on, because I'll be honest with you guys, when I do these streams, I burn a lot of calories. I ate a bunch of food just now, and I can guarantee you by the end of this stream, my stomach is going to be completely empty, and I'm gonna have burned like 500 calories, something like that. So, why would Jews support a far-right candidate, right? Because supposedly Geert Wilders is part of the far right, and the far right is compared to Nazis and all that. So why would Zionists support such a person? Why? Why would Jews support AFD? You have Jewish people who vote for AFD in Germany, which is a far-right party, which the AFD I think is worse than Geert Wilders, from what I can tell. AFD is like they're Nazis. Okay, let's be real here. They're Nazis in disguise, and sometimes they reveal their own faces. Sometimes they pull off the masks, as was the case with Bjorn Höcke back in, I want to say, 2019. Bjorn Höcke talked about how some Holocaust memorial was a memorial of shame, and he was just tired of seeing the Holocaust memorials, and he talked about how the Messiah of Germany lives in a cave in a mountain somewhere. Something that is akin to 12th Imamism in Iran. Like the 12th, in Iran they say that the 12th Imam is living in a cave somewhere. So they expose themselves. Now, is Geert Wilders a Nazi? Like, is he reading Mein Kampf and all that in secret? There's no evidence of that, right? There hasn't really been any serious evidence that Geert Wilders is a Nazi. Now, Geert Wilders can be a racist, yes. He has said some things about Moroccans. But so far from what I have seen, Geert Wilders he's really just focused on anti-immigration. I think years ago he supported euthanasia. He definitely supports Sodom. I don't like the guy. I think the guy's a sicko. But why would Zionists support this guy? And I think that in America, you have people who are very wealthy, who are Zionists, and they notice the rise of Islam. They don't like that. So they say, well, let's promote the far right. And so they will fund people like Geert Wilders. And then you could say, well, maybe this guy's a Nazi. And they'll say, well, he's not a Nazi. He's just a right-wing guy who hates Islamic immigration. So they feel that they can facilitate an anti-Islamic movement and control it so that hopefully it doesn't become Nazistic, right? That's a possibility as to what is happening. So Geert Wilders, yes, he's far right. Yes, he's potentially dangerous, but it looks like he is controllable. Now, there is another group in the Netherlands that I think we should be worried about, and that is the Forum for Democracy Party. Now, I remember I wrote a whole article about the Forum for Democracy Party back in 2019 when the Forum for Democracy Party dominated the regional elections in the Netherlands. The Forum for Democracy Party got the majority of the seats in the 2019 election in the Netherlands. Now, think about this. 2017, Geert Wilders won second place in the Dutch general election. In that same year, and in that same election, Forum for Democracy Party got one seat in the Dutch parliament. You could say, well, that one seat, that's laughable. Forum for Democracy Party was a party that had literally just popped up, it's seemingly out of nowhere. I mean, nothing comes out of nowhere, but you get what I mean. They were a fresh party, brand new. And in their first election, in their first general election, they won one seat. Now, it takes a lot of votes to win one seat in a European parliamentary election. Just look at Turkey, for example. In Turkey, you have a far-right nationalist party that has made a coalition with Erdogan. I forget their name, but they won 5 seats, this far-right party in Turkey. They won 5 seats. And they are very, very nationalistic, very racist, and they won 5 seats. You could say, well, 5 seats, that's nothing. But it took 1 million votes to get those 5 seats. So you have 1 million people voting for this party. That means, if you have 1 million people voting for a party, that means that popularity can increase. If I have 1 million people watching my YouTube channel, that means that I can get way more followers, right? And even if you have 100,000 votes, that means you can increase. That means there's a huge chance or a huge hope that you can increase. So I remember, so the fact that you have Geert Wilders winning first place, the fact that in 2019 you had this far-right party called the Forum for Democracy Party, which is much more radical than Geert Wilders, winning a major election in the Netherlands. This is a sign, everybody. This is a sign. And now, in Sweden, the second biggest party in Sweden is the Sweden Democrats. Literally a party founded by the SS. A party founded by the SS. So what's happening is you're getting these right-wing victories. Some of these rightists are not as bad as others. Some of these rightists are more moderate than others. Some of them are more to the right than others. And what I fear is that it's only going to get worse. I'm not really so worried about Geert Wilders because he's basically he's like a Dutch Trump, right? And he's a blonde. Well, that's actually, his blonde hair is fake, by the way. He's naturally a black-haired man, and he's actually part Indonesian. So he knows that if he actually showed his real hair, he would look more Asian than he already is. He would actually look Asian, and he doesn't want to look Asian. He wants to look white, which is another reason why I don't like this guy. I remember back in, I think it was in 2016, Geert Wilders was in the United States. He came to Florida, and he did a speech with Pamela Geller and Robert Spencer. And they talked about, this was back in 2016. And it was a response to the Orlando shooting. And Geert Wilders did this speech, and behind Geert Wilders was these posters of male youths in sensual poses. And it was all homosexual, erotic photography. And it was just plain creepy. It was very, very creepy stuff. So I do not like Geert Wilders. Like I don't like any of these people, guys. I don't like any of these people. I don't like any of these people. I think that this whole idea that, is the internet working? Guys, is my internet connection working? Hold on. Oh, okay. Yeah, it's working. So what we're seeing is a major shift in the zeitgeist. Okay, it's working. Good. What we're seeing is a major shift in the zeitgeist. The fact that, and man, this is such a fascinating topic. I can talk for hours about this. The fact that when I was in high school, I heard about Geert Wilders, and how at that time when I was in high school, Geert Wilders had no seats. Now he's number one. That's a big shift. The fact that Forum for Democracy Party, which, by the way, is more far-right than Geert Wilders, won big in 2019. After getting one seat in 2017 and then winning big in 2019, that's significant. Forum for Democracy Party is worse than Geert Wilders. Geert Wilders is someone who focuses on immigration. He is somebody that focuses on the problem with Islamic refugees or Islamic immigrants in Europe. He's right about a lot of the things that he says. But he could still be dangerous, don't get me wrong. Forum for Democracy Party focuses on immigration, but they are openly eugenists. Do you see what I'm saying? So Geert Wilders will say, I don't want these immigrants because they're going to bring crime. Forum for Democracy Party comes and says, we believe in eugenics. Eugenics, they are really just Nazis. I mean, Forum for Democracy Party is a Nazi party. It's a repackaged, remarketed Nazism. And they won big in regional elections in 2019 after winning just one seat in the Dutch parliament in 2017. And the fact that Geert Wilders went from 0 to dominating the election, and the fact that Forum for Democracy Party went from getting one seat in the general election to winning big in regional elections in 2019 tells me that Europe is on the way to becoming far-right nationalist. There has been this very common belief that Europeans are weaklings and that Europeans are just idiots and they're just dumb. Let me tell you guys something. This is, I think, nonsense. I think this way of thinking is nonsense. The Europeans in some ways can be smarter than Americans. They have better education systems than the United States. No, it's fine. I understand you're joking. Hello, 117 Rebel, what's up? The Europeans have better education systems than the United States does. The Europeans are actually more disciplined than Americans in many ways. They can be more disciplined. What do I mean by that? Do I mean that Americans don't have good work ethic? No, Americans have some of the best work ethic in the world. I'm not talking about working. I'm talking about behavior. I'm talking about demeanors. Recently, I met up with some friends who were from Denmark. And they were telling me about how it is in Europe. They were telling me about how it is in Scandinavia. And they told me that they were telling me about Norway. And they said in Norway, they give you an option. They give you an option. You do some high school, and then after some time, you can go to trade school. Really? Yes. So in other words, you go to high school for something, and then you can go to trade school. So you can go to trade school to become a carpenter, an electrician, a plumber. I was like, wow, I wish we had that here in the United States, but we don't. In the United States, it's you got to take 4 years of high school, and what do you learn in high school? Nothing. How much stuff that you learn in high school do you still remember today? Probably like 1%, maybe even less than that. You still remember from high school, right? So another thing also is Europeans are not as crazy as Americans in some ways, right? In some ways, in their own way, they're not as crazy. In America, we have mass shootings, and it's just crazy, right? In Norway, they did have Anders Breivik, though. But it seems to me that the Europeans, in some ways, are... I think... Let me just rephrase myself. I think Americans have this misconceived idea, or this... they have this misconception about Europeans, that Europeans are just like idiots and the weaklings and Americans are better and all this stuff. I think people in America are in for a rude awakening, because the fact is that in the European Union alone, there's 500 million people. Most of these people are white. And a lot of Europeans don't want to be a minority. Most of them don't want to be a minority. And so they have this fear that immigration is going to swallow them up. So they're turning to the right. In other words, the whole atmosphere that we have been accustomed to when it comes to the Western world, when it comes to Europe, is going away. Yeah, so Pierre Chopium he lives in Croatia and he says it's the same thing. And I think that's a much better system. I think it's a much better system to have. And if you look at, for example, Sweden, the second biggest party in Sweden is the Sweden Democrats, which is a far-right party founded by members of the SS. Germany, one of the biggest parties, is AfD. I remember I was in Spain. I talked about this before. I was in Spain in 2015, in the spring of 2015, and I met one of the leaders of the Vox Party, which is now one of the biggest parties in Spain. And I met him at a conference, at a Catholic Christian. It was mainly it was an evangelical based conference, but there were Catholics that were there nonetheless. The funder of the conference, or the funder of the organization that organized the conference, was a right-wing Catholic, a trad Catholic. And I remember he told me that he was a leader of the Vox Party. And I asked him, how many seats do you have? And he said, we have no seats right now. And I said, but what do you think is going to happen in the future? And he said, you will watch. Vox is going to become a major party here in Spain. And I said, how do you know that? He said, they are millions of people like me living in this country. And this guy was telling me about how he was a tall Spanish guy. And, well, he was really Portuguese, but what's the difference? He was a tall Iberian, let's just put it that way. And he was telling me about how he was training with the Spanish Special Forces for some secret Catholic esoteric paramilitary organization, the name of which he didn't want to tell me, and how he had a priest who was a spiritual father, and the priest was the spiritual father of the organization, of the paramilitary organization. I mean, it sounded like the damn Freemasons. It sounded very creepy. And he told me that this paramilitary organization is preparing for a war in Spain. Now, he didn't say that it was going to be Spaniards versus Spaniards, but he did tell me that that they were preparing for a war with Muslims in Spain. Now, I think in such a case, there would be a civil war between Spaniards, right? It would be lefties versus righties. And then you would have the Muslims siding mainly with the lefties, if I had to make an assumption about that. But he told me this, and I didn't take him that seriously. I mean, I took his organization seriously. I thought that was very interesting. But when he told me that his party was going to dominate, was going to become this major party, I didn't believe him. Because in the United States, I had met people who would tell me, oh, I'm running for president or whatever, and they wouldn't win a damn thing. But in Europe, you see, politics is a little bit different. Well, it's a lot different in Europe. In Europe, see, in America, we have Republican versus Democrat. And in both of these parties, you have different factions. There's different factions of the Republican Party, different factions of the Democrat Party. And these factions are kind of like their own little parties unto themselves, but they're all under the umbrella of either Democrat or Republican. So in the Democrat Party, you have you have the center left, you have your progressives, your typical liberals, your neoliberals, and then you have like the far left types. You have your Bernie Sanders, you have your Cortezes, your Tlaibs. You have those types of people. And, for example, that far left faction in the Democrat Party is like its own party. It's like its own party, and they can leverage themselves, and they can use their leverage to get things that they want, right, or to win certain victories for the Democrat Party. But they will differ wildly from other Democrats. And so, for example, you have Democrats. You had a Democrat in West Virginia. I remember. I forgot his name, but this Democrat wasn't on board with everything that their Democrat Party wanted to do, and because he had this major position, because he had West Virginia, he could veto certain things the Democrats wanted to do, and so he had that leverage. So these different factions are like little parties. So if I wanted to start my own little party, I would never, in America, I would never start a party. I would never say, I'm going to start this party. I would make my own movement within the Republican Party, because that would be the only way that I would succeed. I would make my own little movement in the Republican Party. And then I would garner followers towards my side, and I would garner Republicans towards my side. And then I would run as a Republican. And then I would get things that I wanted done. But if I would start my own party, and I would, let's say I'm going to start the, Revive Christendom Party or something like that, I would get nowhere, nothing, zip, nothing, nada. But if I wanted to say start a trad Catholic movement in America, and I wanted to get political victories, albeit small victories, nonetheless still victories, I would just become a Republican, and then I would have Catholics vote for me, and then I would push my agenda under the title of Republican, because that would be the only way that I could win. That's how politics works in the United States. We have a two-party system, but within the two parties, you have splinters and factions and things like that. And America does it this way so that I think it's because it's easier to control these factions. You're under the Republican system, you're under the Democrat system, so you have to abide by a certain narrative to gain support, or to gain the support of the rest of the party, things like that. So it's a way to control these factions in the United States. But in Europe, there is no two-party system. Right, there are no two-party systems in the United States, in Europe. There are no two-party systems in any European country. You have parties that dominate, right? So in Germany, you have like the Christian Democrats, or you have the Greens, et cetera, et cetera. You have these big parties, but that does not mean that one day a party that seems insignificant can one day come and dominate you. So in Europe, they're more open about it. It's not just they don't have like a huge party that everybody has to abide by, and then they have factions within the party. You can have something like Vox in Spain be completely insignificant, doing little conferences in Madrid, doing little Christian conferences in Madrid, talking about how they're going to get a major victory when they have 0 seats, and getting not being intimidating to anybody. One day dominate the election, or an election. One day take a significant amount of seats in a parliament. And that's how it is in Europe. So you have the Forum for Democracy Party, comes out seemingly out of nowhere, boom, wins 1 seat in the Dutch in the Dutch parliament. You think, okay, big deal. But then they went big in the 2019 regional elections. So it's a very, very different system. That's what Trump did exactly. Trump has his own faction in the Republican Party, and that faction, it has dominated the Republican Party. The neocons are out. The neoconservatives are out. And that's another thing that I want to talk to you guys about now. And I'll get to that in a little bit. So what's going on in Europe is nationalism is increasing, and with nationalism, you will have divisions in Europe, major divisions in Europe. We've already seen it with Brexit, and this division could eventually lead to this division can come to a point to where the Germans will say, okay, we can't trust these other European countries. We have to make Germany great again. But again, the Netherlands, just use an example, is militarily very well connected with Germany, because the Dutch military has been almost completely, or effectively, completely integrated into the German armed forces. The Dutch Navy, for example, is a part of the German Navy. The Dutch military, the Dutch armed forces, the Dutch army is a part of the German army. They're connected. So what Germany is working on right now is creating a pan-European military force. So, is Geert Wilders going to get rid of that? I don't think so. The way I see it is that you're going to have nationalism in Europe. And it's going to be pan-European. We are Europeans. We are proud Europeans. And that is going to manifest itself eventually into militarism. Let's make a big European military. Now you could say, well, I don't believe that, blah, blah, blah. Maybe you're right, I'm not going to I don't think my predictions are going to be 100% correct. I'm going to get some things wrong. Okay. I'm simply making a rough estimate as to what I think will happen. Remember Viktor Orban. Viktor Orban, big Eurosceptic, causes a lot of strife in the EU. But when it comes down to forming a pan-European military force, Viktor Orban is behind it. Viktor Orban is behind it. And remember, when Russia invaded Ukraine, Geert Wilders said, bring in the Ukrainian refugees. Geert Wilders supported absorbing Ukrainian refugees. So what that tells me is that, yes, Geert Wilders is this Eurosceptic guy, but the question is, will he say no to a strong European military force? We'll have to see. But I think what all of this reveals, what all of this tells us, is that there is a trend happening in Europe, and that trend is towards nationalism. That trend is towards pan-Europeanism. That trend is towards distrust from the United States, distrust of the United States, and a desire to make Europe strong. And we've seen this with Olaf Scholz. We saw this with Merkel when she said not too long after Brexit that we can really no longer fully trust the Americans. We've seen this with Ursula von der Leyen when she has talked about making more military autonomy for the EU. We've seen some very interesting rhetoric. We saw this with who was the guy who was the former EU commissioner. He is a Belgium former EU. What's his name? Juncker. I remember Juncker, and I forgot his full name. Jean-Claude Juncker, who is the former commissioner for the EU. I remember Juncker, he made a speech, I believe in Belgium, and he said that Europe basically must eclipse America. And what that meant was that Europe needs to become very powerful, to the point where we can become like America. Because let's face it, Germany has been occupied and is still occupied by the United States. And if you talk to far-right people in Germany, they will tell you Germany is occupied. It's an occupied country. And it is. And you have tens of thousands of American soldiers in Germany. I mean, it's an occupation. Now, why are the soldiers there? They're there supposedly to defend Europe in case of a Russian invasion, blah, blah, blah. But let's remember what the purpose of NATO is. The purpose of NATO, as it was said when NATO was founded, is to keep the Germans weak and to keep the Russians out. And that's why America, for so many decades, has been in charge of the defense of Germany. They want to defend Germany because I think the Americans had an understanding, given the fact with World War II and all that if you allow Germany to be unleashed, you could have another Reich. But we have come to a different point in history. We have come to a different point in our history. America has changed tremendously, and we all know this, right? I don't have to explain to you why or how this is. And we have seen a tremendous change in the United States, culturally, politically. America has changed tremendously. We've gone from Bush to Trump, as far as Republicans go. That's a big change. Neoconservatism has pretty much died, or is close to dead. What has become very popular is American isolationism or American protectionism. Let me just regain some of my thoughts here, because believe it or not, I'm burning calories here. My brain is like on overload. The United States has changed tremendously from what I call the 9/11 era to now. So what's the 9/11 era? I mean, the title is quite self-explanatory. The 9/11 era is a part of American history that took place right after the 9/11 attacks. You have the 9/11 attacks. We all remember it like it was yesterday, right? I mean, I remember it very well. I remember the 9/11 attacks very well. And what happened? America invaded Iraq. And the entire American population, well, not every American, generally speaking, the American population supported the Iraq War. Generally speaking, the U.S. government, Congress, supported the war in Iraq. And that changed everything. Americans, after 9/11, were very exuberant about war. They were very excited about war, because they watched as thousands of their countrymen were slaughtered by Islamic terrorists. And after 9/11, they were extremely long lines of young Americans wanting to enlist into the military. And why did they want to join the military? Because they wanted to defend their country. It's quite obvious. So they joined the military. They went into Iraq, and they thought, we're fighting for our country. We're fighting terrorists. Then they realized, wait a second, Iraq had nothing to do with 9/11. Saddam Hussein had nothing to do with 9/11. And the neocons said, well, that's because of faulty intelligence. That's why we invaded Iraq, because of bad intelligence, right? The intelligence sector told us that Saddam had some kind of connection to 9/11. So it wasn't that we lied, it's that we made a mistake. But either way you look at it, you have lost the trust of the American people. And we saw thousands of American soldiers being killed. They were killed in battles. They were killed by IEDs. Americans were lynched in Iraq. People were beheaded. Americans were beheaded in Iraq. Remember Nick Berg? Remember that Asian missionary who went to Iraq and he ended up getting beheaded? That was pretty disturbing. Very disturbing. Very disturbing. Remember the screams of Nick Berg? I still have them in my head. Horrifying. And so what ended up happening was Americans stopped trusting the defense sector of the United States. And right now, what is the most mistrusted, what is the most distrusted institution in the United States? What is the most distrusted? What is the most distrusted institution in the United States? It's the military. The military is the most untrusted. There is no institution that is less trusted than the U.S. military. So ask yourself the question, how can the American empire, or the America's global hegemony, whatever you want to call it, survive? How can it continue on when its military is its least trusted institution? And they did a whole study about this. What is the least trusted institution in America? And the study showed that it was the military. And they asked Americans, why don't you trust the military? And one of the dominating opinions was that there isn't a moral principle to fight for. What are we fighting for by going into Iraq? What were we fighting for in Iraq? We thought we were fighting against terrorism. We were fighting against terrorists. But then we saw ISIS. In fact, even during the U.S. occupation, there was tremendous Islamic violence in Iraq. And in fact, there were over 1 million Christians living in Iraq under Saddam's regime. And once Saddam was overthrown, once he was toppled, that Christian population dwindled tremendously. Well, why would it dwindle? If we were getting rid of Saddam in the name of fighting terrorism, why would the Christian population dwindle so quickly? Because the Christian population was being protected by Saddam's government. So were we really fighting Islamic terrorism? And then you had Al-Qaeda, you had the Mujahideen in Iraq, you had, and then eventually ISIS. ISIS really popped out after America left. And there was really, once America left, and that was it. So American soldiers were there as just kind of like putting tape on a leak. That leak was about to burst out. So there's no principle, right? What are we fighting for? Are we fighting for a principle? Are we fighting in a war of good versus evil? Or are we just fighting for America's empire? And people found out that American soldiers were fighting for the empire. They weren't really fighting for principle. So ask yourself the question, how can we continue on in this hegemony? How could the American hegemony continue when Americans don't trust the military? The American military is having a very difficult time recruiting people. We have very low levels of recruitment. We're at a point where the only reason why people join the military is because they have nowhere else to go, right? The military is always hiring. The military always wants people to join it. The military is always open to new employees, and they're not getting the enlistment levels that they want. The biggest problem for the military right now is recruitment. And that's not to say that the U.S. military is weak and all that. The U.S. military is still the strongest military in the world, but looking at the future, is America going to police the world forever? Nothing lasts forever. Nothing lasts forever. That's the thing. Nothing lasts forever. And that's another thing. I remember 117 Rebel brings up a good point. He says, yeah, because Americans were disgusted with the Skittles, Alphabet, recruitment ads, et cetera, et cetera. Well, I remember back in 2014, I went to North Carolina. And while I was in North Carolina, I met with a guy who had been in the Marine Corps for, I'm pretty certain it was the Marine Corps, for 15 years. And he told me, he said that they are pushing the religion of the Republic of Sodom into the military. And he says, it's disgusting. And I said, well, what did you do? He goes, I left the military. After 15 years of service, he said, I left the military. I want no part. I will not be a pawn for the Alphabet Mafia. So he left. And I think that his sentiment reflects a lot of people in the military. So eventually the American empire is going to be gone. It's not going to last forever. America can't do this forever. Listen, we Americans, we are very comfortable, right? We live very comfortable lives. Look at us. We're watching 4-hour streams. And I'm not talking about just this particular stream. I mean, like, you have people going online watching Asmongold for 4 hours. They just watch Asmongold. Like, that's how comfortable we are as a society. We're watching some guy in Austin, Texas, who has a filthy house, talking about video games for hours. And Asmongold's a very entertaining guy. Don't get me wrong. He's very entertaining. But that's how comfortable we are as a society. We're watching cat videos. We're watching, chickens running around. I mean, we're living very, very comfortable lives. Why in the hell would you want to go to some war? You know how horrible war is? War is the worst place you can be. I'd rather be, you know what? I would rather be in the military than be in prison. You know? But war is, I remember watching a video of during the Saudi Houthi war, when the Saudis were fighting in Yemen. I remember seeing a video of a Saudi soldier in the middle of the desert in Yemen saying, "I just want to go home." This guy looked like he was in his early 40s. He had glasses on. He looked like some Arab tech guy, like you would see him in Silicon Valley somewhere designing a video game. And he's like, "I just want to go home." I mean, this guy did not look fit for war at all. He's like, "I just want to go home." So here we are looking at cat videos where we're drinking pumpkin spice coffee, where I got my cat here on the bed. I am talking to you guys. We're in the Matrix. Why in the hell would anybody want to join the military unless they had nowhere else to go? For the most part, that's why people join the military. You do have some families in America who are all about the military, and we call them military families. And for generations, they just joined the military, and they're very patriotic. You have those people. But for the most part, most people in the military are just there for a job. And I'm not condemning them. I'm not blaming them. I'm not making fun of them. They're just there for a job. It has nothing to do with patriotism. So eventually what's going to happen is America's going to say, "Okay, Europe, you're going to be controlled by Germany. Germany, you got Europe. Turkey, you got the Middle East. Japan, you got Asia. You got North Asia, Northeast Asia. And that's it. Peace." That's what's going to happen. And I know the Serbs are going to be happy. They're going to be happy. Oh, we're so happy. But it's not going to be fun times. Now what's going to happen when America just withdraws itself? What's going to happen is that Russia is going to expand. And Turkey and Russia are going to have a war. That's what's going to happen. Turkey, it's that simple. Turkey and Russia are going to have a war. Europe is going to become a major military bloc. Major military bloc. And the Europeans and the Turks are going to be allies. Specifically, what I really mean to say is the Germans and the Turks are going to be allies against the Russians. Now, this may not, I'm not saying this is going to happen immediately, but I think eventually this is going to be the case. Now, it could be that at one point, Germany and Russia will be allies. And the Russians are going to try to have an alliance with the Germans, and they're going to try to be friendly with the Turks and all this stuff, but it's going to be like World War II. Right, if that happens, it's going to be like World War II. Stalin and Hitler were allies, and then that didn't last very long. So I think that's what the future holds. It's going to be a big European bloc. I don't know all the details; it's impossible. But this is what I think is going to happen, roughly speaking. There's going to be a big European military bloc. The rise of Russia, the rise of Turkey, the rise of Japan, China, and Japan are going to have a war. That's it. I think that's, roughly speaking, that's what's going to happen. And you have to ask yourself the question. In a country where the military is the least trusted, how can this country maintain an empire? How can this country maintain a hegemony without a strong military? That's the question. All right, I'm gonna read your guys' comments here. You guys have a lot of comments. Okay, here we go. Happy Black Friday, Philip Reese. Hello. Roasted Vegetables. Hello. Rusty Shackleford asked the question, Theo, did you hear about the news about Michael Voris? Yes, I did. And I knew somebody was going to bring this up for this stream. I have my issues with Michael Voris, but I don't really want to get into this topic because I really don't know all the details. Voris did a video basically saying that he messed up. He apologized. Whatever that may be, I don't know what it is. I don't really want to get into it because I don't like talking about things about other people. I don't like talking about other things when it comes to... I don't like talking about other people in regards to things that I don't really know much about. So, you know, that's it. We're done. I don't know. Is Ted hiding behind the desk? No. Hello, Justin. Justin Kuhn. Bien. Let's see. Kato Kazi says, you did call it when it comes to the rise of the right in Europe. I did. I saw it coming. I saw it coming with the refugee problem. When you bring in all these refugees and you put them in Europe, people are going to vote for the far right. And this is very horrifying. Very horrifying. But a lot of people are turning to Nazism, or they're turning to crazy Nazi-like ideology. And that's really what worries me. Here's the thing, guys. Anytime I see Islamic violence, or anytime I see that there is a lot of reports coming from the media about Muslims doing crimes, you know, this Muslim raped this woman, this Muslim stabbed somebody, it always concerns me. There's two things that I'm concerned about. One, I'm concerned about the rise of Islamic extremism, or Islamic fundamentalism, whatever you want to call it. But secondly, I am also worried about reprisals. Because remember, and we've seen this many times in history with the Islamic world, the Muslims, this has happened many times in history. The Muslims get overconfident. Islamic terrorists, Islamic criminals, right? Not all Muslims are this way, but you have Islamic criminals, and they become very exuberant and become full of hubris, and they become very confident. And they go and they do crimes. They stab, they rape, they put bombs, they do terrible things. They do a massacre, as what happened in Paris, in the Bataclan massacre. What eventually happens is reprisals. What eventually happens is reprisals. If there is one, and I wish the Muslims would just learn this. They're not very smart. Here's the thing about the Muslims. They're not very smart. See, we talk about the Muslims and this and that. They're not the smartest people. They're not. I think Islam does something to your mind. They're not the smartest people. Yes, they're still here. Yes, they have defeated many great empires. You know, the Muslims fought the Mongols, and the Mongols just slaughtered the Muslims at one point. But a lot of the Mongols became Muslim in the end. So the Muslims, I guess, won the victory ultimately. They took over the Ottoman Empire, or it's not that. Sorry, not the Ottoman. The Byzantine Empire got crushed by the Turks, and yeah, you're absolutely right. But who always comes on top at the end? It's not the Muslim. It's not the Muslim. Yes, eventually the Crusaders lost. But that wasn't because the Europeans were lousy fighters. That was because the Europeans had so much division on their own that they didn't have the collective strength to fight against the Muslims. The Muslims were getting their asses whooped most of the time by the Crusaders. Oh, the Battle of Hattin. Yeah, okay, Battle of Hattin. But you go, fast forward into Richard the Lionheart and look at his battle with the Muslims in the Battle of Acre. I mean, he destroyed the Muslims in the Battle of Acre, wiped them out. It was horrible. Well, not horrible in the sense that it was like evil, but it was a huge defeat for the Muslims. Eventually, the Islamic world was crushed by the British. There is no more Ottoman Empire, and they not yet, at least. It's going to come back. But the Muslims, they will do terrible things, and then they end up getting massacred. And then they say, oh, look, poor us. Okay, they started a war in Lebanon. The PLO started a war in Lebanon. They ended up getting massacred by the Kataib. It was terrible what the Kataib did. It really was. It was evil what the Kataib did. But that is, I think, what the future holds for a lot of Muslim people. Instead of just being smart and being nice to everybody and being likable, Muslims have made themselves very unlikable. They've made themselves very unlikable. They commit a lot of crime. They commit a lot of crime. They will disrespect the host nation. They need to be likable. If you want to win, you got to be likable. Listen, if Muslims were the nicest people in the world and nobody had an issue with them, these far right parties wouldn't be winning. That's the thing. They wouldn't be winning. And if they were likable and everybody liked them, you know what would happen? People would say, oh my God, these people are great. These people are great. And more people would convert to Islam. People would marry Muslims. I mean, you would have, I think, more long-term, a better victory. But Islam is a religion of the sword. It's a militant, militaristic, violent religion. It is militant Unitarianism. And the thing is that they can't help it. Yes, I've read about the siege of Tal al-Zatar. Yes, it was pretty terrible. But they can't help it. A lot of them, well, they can't help it. They choose to do evil. They're under the spell of this cult, and that's the problem. This militant Unitarian cult. And so, what eventually I think will happen is the Arab world is going to be destroyed. It's going to be destroyed by different peoples, I think, by the Persians. I think the Iranians are going to wipe out a lot of the Arabs, and that's something that the Persians want to do. And the Persians are not an Arab nor a Semitic people. The Persians are, for the most part, an Indo-European people. The Turks are not a Semitic people either. They are mainly Indo-European, and the Turks hate the Arabs. So the Turks and the Iranians, both Indo-European people, will wipe out the Arabs. And I think that the Europeans, the Western Europeans and the Northern Europeans, likely will take part in this as well, because there is a lot of hatred against refugees. And I think this hatred is it's just going to fester, and it's festering right now. Yeah, so that's what I have to say about that. I think that there is going to be a destruction of. I think that there's going to be a destruction of the Semitic race, and by the Semitic race, I'm talking about the Jews and the Arabs, the sons of Abraham. I think that the Jews are going to be holocausted again. I've said this a million times, and it's going to be a terrible thing. The hatred towards the Jews will eventually lead to genocide. And I think that there's going to be an invasion of Israel by Turkey, and I think a huge amount of the Jewish population in Israel is going to be wiped out. I also think that there's going to be a civil war between the Jews, and I'm going to talk a little bit more about this in a moment. And I think that there's going to be horrific violence between the Arabs and the Jews. And the Jews will commit atrocities against the Arabs, and vice versa. And this is going to prompt the Turks to intervene to protect the Arab population. And eventually, violence will get so bad in Israel to a point where the Turks will intervene. This is what I believe will happen. Yeah. So let's talk more about this, but let me first get to your comments here. What about what's happening in Ireland? Yes, there was a riot in Ireland, anti-Muslim riot. 500 people got involved, and they did a whole bunch of property damage. Again, this is just another sign of tribalist hatred, and it's stoked up by the Islamic violence. And this is why I say I think eventually there's going to be and I could be wrong about this, but I think eventually what will happen is a Holocaust of the Arab people in Europe. Not entirely, but I think that something like that is going to happen. Don't underestimate the European. When they get genocidal, run. Seriously, run. We've seen this sort of thing before. We saw this in the 1930s and 40s. I mean, we saw what the Germanics were doing to the Semitic people in Europe. I mean, it was pretty horrible. And I think that in the future, something like this will happen. Ted don't like anybody? No, not really. I don't like anybody who's in the public realm. Anybody who becomes like a famous speaker, anybody who becomes like super popular, political parties. I don't like any of them. That's my position. Poland doesn't have Muslim migrants, but they are not Nazis. Meanwhile, Germany has a lot of Muslims. What is going on there? Well, Poland has a very long history of suffering under Nazism, whereas Germany started Nazism. So there's an historical dimension somewhere there, I think. Looks like somebody's having difficulty with their wife and shopping. Sorry to hear that. What would happen if Germans rebel against America? I think that's already happening to a certain extent. I think eventually America is just going to let Germany go. But we saw a little bit of that. We've seen a little bit of that with Iran. The Americans hate Iran. They don't like the Europeans doing deals with Iran or Russia. And the Germans have made deals with the Russians and the Iranians to the ire of the Americans. So this has already happened. And I think Germany has been very warm with the Iranians. And even though America has objected to this, Germany made a deal with the Russians to have the Nord Stream 2 pipeline. The Americans hated this. That was Germany rebelling. The Germans know damn well that the Americans hate it. They hate any idea of Germany getting a closer tie with the Russians. The Americans hate it because the Americans are terrified of a Russian-German alliance. Good evening, MCADHD. All of your comments were... I didn't delete any of your comments. YouTube has been doing this sort of thing. Even with me, I put comments in other people's videos, and I'll see those same comments gone. I don't know why that is, but it just is. I don't... It's not my doing. That dull knife. Yes, I remember. That's why you got out of the military? I can't blame you. Thanks, Madeline Albright. Yep. Not trusting the military sounds at least like the situation during the Vietnam War. Yes. But we live... it's different. And here's the difference. The difference is in how information is spread out in the world today. So in Vietnam, there was no internet. You couldn't go on the internet. You couldn't pull out your iPhone to look up what's going on in a different country. You couldn't pull out your iPhone and go to alternative media or go on Twitter to find a narrative that was radically different from the official narrative. What you got in Vietnam, or what you got in the early 2000s, for the most part, was the official narrative. You read the newspaper. That's what it was. Now, in the early 2000s, back in 2001, when 9/11 happened, the internet was around, but nothing like what it is today. People were still reading the newspapers in 2001. People were still reading the New York Times. People were still reading Time magazine. They were looking at all that stuff. They weren't going on the internet. Alternative media was effectively non-existent. I mean, there was some things going on. Don't get me wrong, but the mainstream still dominated. What eventually happened is social media, YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, and what these platforms did was it enabled people with alternative views to become major voices. So you had 9/11 take place in 2001. What were people doing? Go on TV. Oh my God, thousands of Americans are dead. Oh my God. George Bush comes out, reads the Bible. Everybody's just, oh my God, what's going on? They're listening to George Bush. They want hope. They want comfort. People were going to church. If you had a 9/11 take place today, you wouldn't have that same energy. You wouldn't. When 9/11 happened, there were people joining the military. By the droves, joining the military. You wouldn't have that today. I'm telling you, you wouldn't have that today. If you had a massacre in America, if you had Muslims in America right now do a massacre and they killed thousands of Americans in an act of terrorism, they blew up a stadium during the Super Bowl, let's say, and thousands of people are dead. You know what would happen? People would be turning to alternative media. Yes, people would still be going to mainstream media, but they will also be going to alternative media by the droves. And you would have a divided and a fragmented opinion on what happened. And you would have a ton of people saying, this is a false flag attack, this was allowed. And some people on Twitter would be coming out saying, no, there's a report saying that men in black suits with earpieces were suspiciously walking around the football stadium an hour before the explosion. Oh, somebody said that they saw a member of the FBI next to the stadium. I mean, there would be all these stories coming out, right? Oh, we saw some rabbis dancing. I mean, people would be coming out with stories like this, right? Like, during 9/11, there were people talking about how they were Israelis dancing on a building, and those people were arrested and all that stuff. And there would be such a divided opinion. Do we go to war over this? Who did this? Do we go to war? And you would have an anti-war movement, and they would be all over the internet, and you wouldn't have that unity like you had back in the early 2000s. I don't believe you would, because of the way that information is spread today. No one's reading newspapers anymore. Newspapers are dead. All the big newspapers have now become internet newspapers. New York Times, Time magazine, they're all on the internet. That's why now you have paywalls. I remember years ago, you could go on the New York Times website. There was no paywall. You just open up the thing. Why? Because they were getting enough money. Now that no one's reading the physical newspaper, they have to have paywalls now. They all have to have paywalls. So there would be such a divide in the opinion. And people will be saying, well, why did this attack happen? Who allowed it? Now they want to push us into war. They allowed this to push us into war. And there would be people saying, this is the military-industrial complex. And you would have this Alex Jonesian opinion having a big presence in the talk, regarding such a terror attack. You just wouldn't have that unity. And even look at Israel. Let's talk about Israel. Some things I want to show you guys about Israel. Check this out, guys. This is amazing. Why do we do these live streams? I like to do these live streams because I want to interact with the audience, but I also want to express myself about certain ideas directly to the audience. Yeah, after Pearl Harbor, another excellent example. Pearl Harbor. But again, in those days, it was what? In those days... What the hell? Hold on a second. My mouse is dying, so I need to replug my mouse to get the battery back up. Hello, Morg321. Yeah, after Pearl Harbor, it was like, what the hell happened? The Japanese invaded America and they attacked a naval base. Oh my God, thousands of Americans killed. People were reading the newspapers in the 1940s. They were reading. What does the government tell me? What does the government? They would just open the newspaper, tell me information, suck up information. Now it's like, okay, I could go to the mainstream media outlet, but I could go to other alternative sites. Not only can I go to other alternative sites, I can go to alternative sites that are based in different countries for my information, and I can get a completely different opinion. Look at what's been going on with Israel. Now, we saw a massacre of the Jews. Over 1,000 Jews killed, just like that. Over 1,000 Jews killed. You would think the world would be united. Hey, oh my God. An anti-Semitic attack done on the Jewish people by terrorists who deny the Holocaust and who admire Adolf Hitler. Right wing. Really, what happened on October the 7th? Let's be real here. What happened on October the 7th was a bunch of far-right, Hitler-admiring Middle Eastern men who are misogynists. They're misogynistic, far-right Hitler sympathizers who went into Israel and slaughtered over 1,000 Jews. That's what happened. You would think, oh my God, you would think wow, we need to unite against this, right? You would think, wow, we need to go against this. We need to, we need to unite against anti-Semitism. We need to unite against all these things. But that's not what happened. What you see is 1,000 people gathered together in London. Not 1,000, 1 million people. Sorry, I said 1,000. I had a little brain glitch there. 1 million people gathered together in London to protest not against anti-Semitism, but to protest in favor of those who killed the Jews. What is Hamas? Let's be real here. You have all. This is why I don't like anybody. This is why I say don't trust nobody, don't like nobody, because it's all bullshit. You have all these people who are calling themselves titles like Pussy Riot, going around talking about feminism, and they're dressed up like giant vaginas, and they do the big vagina rallies, and they say, oh my God, feminism, misogynist. Trump is a misogynist. He said he wanted to grab a woman by the vagina. He's a misogynist. He's just, oh my goodness. Feminism, far right, misogynist. We have to fight against the misogynist. But who did the massacre of the Jews in Israel? Who did the massacre? Let's be real here. These were far right, misogynist. You haven't seen misogyny until you've seen the Middle East. Far right, misogynist, anti-Semitic, Hitler-admiring men with guns. That's who did the massacre. So you would think people would rally around it. Let's rally against this stuff. This is terrible. Greatest massacre of Jews since the 1940s. Nope. This music is Iranian. That's not what happened. What happened was people rallied against the Jews. So we live in a very different time. I remember my father used to go to pro-Israel rallies. And I remember I used to go to these rallies with my dad. And one time we went to, I want to say we went to Oakland, California, Oakland is a big city in Northern California. And I remember this huge crowd of people waving Star of Davids, waving Israeli flags. And I remember there was a group of Black Panthers. There were these black guys dressed up in military berets and military boots. And they were walking around. They were Black Panthers. Straight up, they were Black Panthers. And there were a small number of them. And then I remember we walked down this street in the middle of the downtown area of Oakland. And I remember there was this small group, like there had to have been at most like 12 of them. There were 12 of them with little Palestinian flags. And the pro-Jewish flag rushed those guys. They just rushed them. And I kid you not, I was there. I was in the middle of it. I can tell you right now. I remember it like it happened yesterday. People rushed the people with the pro-Palestine flags, and there was a damn near fist fight. And my father was next to me, and my father got in front of one of these pro-Palestine guys. And my dad said, "Do you want to fight? Let's go right now." And the pro-Palestine guys, you know what they did? They ran away. And there was like 12 of them. Now, the pro-Israel crowd is the small crowd. The biggest thing they could get was 200,000 people in Washington. That was it. In Sydney, Australia, you had tens of thousands of people gathered together for Palestine. For Israel, maybe 1,000 people. What's going on? Whatever happened to fighting Nazism? Whatever happened to fighting terrorism? Whatever happened to fighting, those evil, misogynistic, far-rightists? What happened? We supported Ukraine. Who are we supporting? Azov. Remember all the talk about fighting Azovstal? Remember all the talk about helping the men in Azovstal? Oh, let's help the soldiers who are stuck in the Azovstal plant. Remember that? Who was in Azovstal? It was Azov Battalion. Nazis. And who did the Canadians support? Who did the Americans support? Azov. Ukrainian neo-Nazis. So you have people who are sympathetic to Azov, people who are sympathetic to Hamas. Whatever happened to let's fight against fascism? Because it's all going down, guys. It's all going down. That's the bottom line. It's all going down. Fascism is rising. Be it in Turkey, be it in Europe, fascism is rising. And I've said this a billion times. The fact that you have now Sweden Democrats, far-right party, second biggest party in Europe. Netherlands, the parliament dominated by Geert Wilders. You have the Forum for Democracy party, which is worse than Geert Wilders, rising up. AFD in Germany. Vox in Spain. You have Catalonian separatism, which is still huge in Catalonia. What is happening? Argentina, the guy they voted for, I don't know much about him, but I hear he's like a Trump. Regardless, if you look at all of these events, if you look at this phenomena, you have some people who are more right-wing than others, but nonetheless, they're gaining ground. All these people, all these parties are gaining ground. And it's a sign. It's a sign. So, the world as we knew it is coming to an end. That's it. As simple as that. It's coming to an end. And like I said, I truly fear for the future. I truly fear for the future. And I foresee the destruction of the Semitic race. The destruction of both the Arab and the Jew. The Jews will have another Holocaust, and it'll be done by the Turks. It'll be done potentially also by the Europeans. The Arabs will be slaughtered. They will be genocided by the Persians and the Turks. It's going to be the destruction of the Semitic race. That's what we see. Anyway, man, I have burned probably like 1,000 calories. You're not in that category, Thea? What category? The military does teach you skills. I know it does. But they have very low recruitment. That's the whole point. Nobody wants to fight in a war. I thought that Turkey would invade Israel. Yeah, that's what I was saying. Well, the wife said our one daughter needed pants. Oh, goodness. Marital affairs. They still have registers. Okay. You always been calling for that reigniting of Germany. Yep, I have. I've been saying it for years, and I still believe it. And you see it. Speaking of Sabra and Shatila, have you read about the siege of Tel al-Zator? Yes, I've also read about the Karantina massacre that happened in Lebanon. Do you believe that Muslim families would allow their daughters to marry non-Muslim? Well, you just focused on Muslim women marrying non-Muslim men. No, for the most part they wouldn't, but they wouldn't mind their Muslim sons marrying non-Muslim women. And believe me, if Muslim men were very, very nice, they would have a lot of intermarriage. Do you think a World War III would happen, but no nukes? I think eventually there's got to be nukes, but I think you will have a war with trench warfare, tanks, all that stuff, drones. Eventually, it's going to escalate to the point where it'll become nuclear. Kingdom of Antichrist. Recently, it's been revealed that Trump does not like Bibi and even said in a recording, F him. You heard about that? No, I did not. That's interesting. Let me look this up. Trump. F him, he said. F Netanyahu. Trump accuses Netanyahu of disloyalty. F him. Yeah, there was some kind of a strain between Netanyahu and Trump. And I remember Netanyahu refused to meet Trump when Trump first got elected, and then Trump got mad at him. Yeah. A lot of hatred towards Netanyahu, guys. A lot of hatred. What's your deal with Trump? That's what your deal with Trump was, the separatism. Yep. And I think, listen, guys, I potentially am gonna have egg in my face for saying this, but I think I could be wrong. Okay, I'm gonna pre-qualify my statement. I could be completely wrong. I think that Trump is gonna win. That's my opinion. I think Trump's gonna win this coming election. Yeah, 2001 was still the early days of the internet. That's correct. Same thing happened at Pearl Harbor. Yep. Nowadays, can't imagine why people would join the army. Yeah. Not with this leadership, but with Trump in office, we'd be surprised at turnout. Maybe. Yeah. What are we listening to in the background? Here, I'll send you guys the link. This is Kurdish music. Here's the link. Theo, these live streams are important. I'm glad you think so. That's why I really prepare for these live streams. I got a bunch of notes ready for you guys. I'm not even done yet. I still got more to talk about. Beautiful music. I'm glad you like it. No, they weren't Black Hebrew Israelites. They were Black Panthers. Black Hebrew Israelites weren't really a thing back in that time. Watch out for his chainsaw. Need some of the Burdock beer. Yeah, good idea. You're not in the know nothings watching 4 hours. No, I'm not. I've never sat there watching a 4-hour podcast, but people do that. The Somani attack. Ted, you didn't think he was gonna win, and he did. Hold on, what? Whoa, hold on. When the hell did I say that Trump wasn't gonna win? I said before the first election, I was saying that Trump was gonna win. I said it. I said Trump is going to win. Yes. I was absolutely telling people that Trump was going to win for the first election. I don't know what your memory. I don't know what's wrong with your memory there, or you're making things up. But I never said that Trump was going to lose for the first election. What do you think will become of the Balkans in the near future? Do you think that states like Greece, Serbia, and Bulgaria will gain more territory for themselves? I'm not really sure about that. I think that eventually Turkey and Russia are going to fight over the Balkans. Turkey is going to back the Albanians and the Bosnians. Turkey will be on the side of Croatia against the Serbs, and they're going to try to have a proxy war against Russia's ally Serbia. I mean, you're already seeing a little bit of that right now with Kosovo. And eventually there's going to be a war between the Russians and the Turks. And the Turks are backing the Albanians. They're backing the Albanians as a proxy in Kosovo against the Serbs. Eventually, that whole region of Kosovo is going to blow up into a conflagration of horrendous violence, and I think eventually it's just going to lead to Turkey and Russia having a war. Yeah, trying to think. Yeah. I also think that it's possible that Germany will enter the Balkans on the side of Turkey against the Russians, and the Germans will try to expand their own hegemony in the Balkans as well. And that's the reason why the Germans are pushing for more Balkan countries to join the European Union. Do you think after Gaza, Israel would allow a Palestine state to exist? No, I don't think so. I could be wrong about this, but the formation of a Palestinian state. Let me think about this for 1 second. Could Israel allow that to happen? It's possible. It's possible, but it's hard for me to just say yes, that's going to happen. The reason why is because to have a Palestinian state would be extremely dangerous for Israel. Israel cannot afford it. If you have a Palestinian state, that means the Palestinians will have their own airports. That means that the Palestinians could import jihadis from other countries. That means you could have, for example, thousands of people from Chechnya, Dagestan, Ingushetia, from Albania, from Bosnia, from all over the Muslim world, flying into the West Bank or flying into Gaza, into Palestine, to do terrorism against the Israelis. That's what that would mean. That also would mean you would have a Turkish satellite country and also an Iranian foothold right next to Israel, because Hamas is backed by Iran. So imagine if the Gazans, they have their own government. Iran would be right there next to Israel. You would have an Iranian ally right next to Israel, right there with its own airport. They could fly people in. They'll have their own military, tanks. They'll have an air force. They'll be building an air force. It would be a complete disaster to have a Palestinian state. It would be the foreshadowing towards another Holocaust of the Jews. It's a complete disaster. So no, I don't think the Israelis want a Palestinian state. Looks like Sweet Body Fit is hiding. He's hiding from the ladies. Israel hasn't been in Gaza since 2005. Yep, that's correct. Yeah, I said that I don't think Biden was going to win. I said that when Trump was running for the first election, I was 100% saying Trump is going to win. There was no doubt in my mind that Trump was going to win the first time. There was just no doubt in my mind. There was so much. Let me tell you guys something. When Obama was president for 8 years, you know how much traffic I was getting in my website? Millions. Millions of people were coming to my website, guys. I was getting so many people. People reading my articles, watching my YouTube. It was amazing. Great times. 8 years. And one thing I can tell you, I was getting so many people reading my website, millions of people reading my website, or our website, because my dad and I run it, that I sensed the hatred against Obama. I sensed the hatred. I could feel the hatred against the Democrat Party. So I thought, there is no way in hell that Hillary Clinton was going to become president. It just wasn't going to happen. And I was right. You know? But I think this time Trump is going to win. I could be wrong, but I think this time Trump is going to win. I remember Ted saying, et cetera, et cetera. Rusty leading up to the 2016 election, Ted always said nonstop that Trump, yeah, I was saying it nonstop. I did entire videos on the subject. How long have I been? Almost 2 hours of talking, guys. All right, I want to show you guys some things here. I'm going to pull up my notes. All right. Now, about Europe. Okay, I want to show you guys some things here. Okay, I want to show you guys a couple of documents here. I got this from Germany. My brain is so fried right now from talking for almost 2 hours. It's so weird how many calories your body will burn. I don't know how these professional streamers do it. This is why I can't do this every day, guys. It's just too much for me. Some things I want to pull out here from my notes. All right, I'm going to change the music up a little bit here. I think I should get a drink. Dude, it is amazing. Yeah, the streamers are always drinking Red Bull, Dr. Pepper. That's right. It gives me. I can't do this. Is amazing. I want to talk about something else. I need something to drink. I need some coffee. Hold on. Give me 1 second, guys. Okay. Hold on. 1 second. All right. Guys, I got some coffee being made right now because my brain is fried. Tommy Kleteka. I appreciate you and your amazing father for being sober-minded, thoughtful, and diligent in your study. I pray God renew your strength and keep going. To keep going, of course, he would want you to rest. Thank you so much, Tommy. I appreciate that. I'm drinking Napoleon Curvoisor tonight, guys. What about you? I got some coffee being made. Red Bull. No, Red Bull's... yeah, it's complete poison. I agree. Those streamers are always drinking G Fuel. Yeah. Eat something sweet. I'm going to get some cookies. We need to support this channel as it is the best source of... you know what? I really appreciate that, you guys. I'm the only one saying the things that I'm saying. Random question. You think an independent Kurdish state in northern Iraq would be a good idea? Probably, yeah. Maybe. I don't know. As long as they're not, like, racist Kurds who hate Christians. I don't really see an issue. I've never really studied the Kurdish issue that much, to be honest with you. I have a bottle of Rodenbach Alexander and a mug of eggnog. Oh my gosh. Then I put rum in it. Oh wow. Ted, don't ever stop your Friday live streams. Dude, I've been preparing for this stream all week. This is the way I prepare for these streams. I don't work very hard on preparing for these streams. When I see something in the news that interests me, I just save it for the stream. I say save it for the stream. Put it for the stream. Put it for the stream. Put it for the stream. Right now I'm working on a paper on the on the Holocaust of the Semitic race. How it's going to happen. I believe that it will happen. It's terrible. I'm not supporting it. YouTube, do not strike this damn channel. I'm fighting against genocide, okay? Stop it. But that's what I'm working on right now. And I want to share with you guys some of the things that I've been finding this week. You know what's amazing? I found this Islamic YouTube channel. Some Muslim guy. He does a video with over 300,000 views. He does a video. Thank you. He does a video. Oh, I got some coffee. Keep me going. Here we go. All right. He does a video praising Hamas. Praising Hamas. The video has over 300,000 views. It's still on YouTube. I reported it to YouTube. I said, this guy promotes terrorism. It's still on YouTube. What the hell? What I appreciate most about Theo is the fact that he is open to be connected when he is wrong, corrected when he is wrong. He's basically one of the few. Yeah, I try my best not to be afraid of being wrong, you know, and that can be scary. But I appreciate the words Ortho Christus. All right, guys. It's been 2 hours. We have some more things to talk about. I got my G Fuel. I got my caffeine. So here we go. I want to show you guys some things here. Did I talk about Muriel Asselberg in last week's stream? I don't think I did. So here's my theory, and if I talked about this in my last stream, don't worry about it because I'm going to add more to it. Because this is part of the paper I've been working on since a fortnight ago. I believe that, like I said, there's going to be a Holocaust of the Semitic world, the Semitic people, the Arabs and the Jews will be destroyed. And I suspect that Europe is going to be a part of this genocide. I think that the Europeans will rise up to attack Israel. And why do I think this? Well, the main reason is because I have historical precedents for this. No one got closer to exterminating the Jews than the Germans did. The Germans were the closest to exterminating the Jews. They almost exterminated all the Jews in Europe. They got the closest. In fact, the Germans, they did something that the Muslim world never got close to, and that was just fully exterminating the Jews. The Muslim world focused more, when it came to the Jews, the Muslim world focused more on getting money from the Jews. The Muslim world focused more on getting the jizya tax from the Jews, treating the Jews as dhimmis, maintaining the Jews as being in dhimmi status. Yes, there were pogroms against Jews done by the Islamic world, and there were massacres of the Jews done by Muslims. This is the reason why the Jews left the other Middle Eastern countries to go into Israel when Israel was forming as a brand new country. But it was nothing like what happened with the Jews in Europe. This is the reason why the Israelis talk about the Holocaust all the time. Part of the identity of an Israeli is the Holocaust. And I'm not saying that they praise the Holocaust or anything like that, but they reference the Holocaust when talking about their Israeli identity, in the sense that we were almost exterminated, we were almost wiped out, we need this country as a refuge from those who hate us. So the Holocaust is an integral part. It is a part of the Israeli identity that cannot be removed from that identity. Why? Why is it so significant? Because it was the greatest massacre of the Jews in history. There was nothing like it. So there is a historical precedent, and it wasn't just the Germans who were involved. It was the Ukrainians who were involved. It was the Croatians who were involved. There were multiple people involved, multiple Europeans involved, multiple European nations, I should say, who were involved in the extermination of the Jews in Europe. So there's that historical precedent that we have when we observe these things. And the other thing also is the political discourse that has been going on in Germany, I should say, within the last 7 or 8 years or so, almost a decade. Let's just say within this decade and in the second half of the last decade, political discourse in Germany has been shifting, and we've been seeing this shift continue on, shifting towards not so much being a complete ally of Israel. Yes, I know that Olaf Scholz has said that Germany is on the side of Israel, but that's because Israel just had its greatest massacre in its modern history as a nation. And Germany, having that history of almost exterminating the Jews, is expected to say that they're on the side of Israel. Because imagine if Germany said, "Oh, F Israel, they deserve it." It would be it wouldn't look too good for the Germans. So, but if you look at some of the political discourse in the German defense world, or in the think tank world of German defense, so not so much the German military, but the ideologues who are in the think tank industry of Germany, you will see that there has been a lot of talk of Germany becoming more and more independent. There has also been talk about Germany in the future not relying on America for security, and therefore Germany having to see the Middle East as its neighbor and as part of Germany's security interest. So in other words, in the future, we're not going to be able to trust the Americans so much, so Germany is going to have to become a global power. So where does that leave Germany in regards to the Middle East? The Middle East is Germany's southern neighbor. So Germany will have to go to the Middle East to expand its hegemony. And I want to show you guys some papers that I've been reading that have talked about this, that have actually described the Middle East as Germany's southern neighbor, that Germany needs to see as its realm of interest. And when you look at that, you have to ask yourself the question, where does that leave Germany in regards to Israel? Because the Germans have not, the German population is not so much pro-Israel as some would like to think. There's a lot of Germans who hate Israel, a lot of Germans who are pro-Palestine. And I'm not even talking about Muslim Germans. I'm talking about white Germans who aren't Muslim. A lot of them are very pro-Palestine. So I want to recount to you guys a story from my own life. When I was in high school, I had a teacher. She was a history teacher. She was a American German woman. She spoke German. And she was a U.S. citizen, but she was ethnically German. I think she had family in Germany, maybe, I don't remember. But she spoke German. And she lived in Germany as a teacher. She was teaching, I think, English in Germany for years. And I remember one day we were in class, and she was talking to me about how Germany is. And I remember she told me, she said, the young people in Germany are tired of hearing about the Holocaust. And I was a little bit shocked by that. But she said that the young people, they don't want to hear about the Holocaust anymore. They're tired of hearing about the Holocaust. That's it. They're burned out. Stop talking to us about the Holocaust. And that was back in 2005. I want to say 2005. It was either late 05 or early 2006. But I want to say roughly around 2005. This is when I heard this. So I was hearing this from somebody who was living in Germany, or who had lived in Germany as a teacher, and who spoke German. And she was telling me this. So a couple of days ago, I was reading this article, and I want to show you guys this article here. Written by a German think tank Middle East analyst. She is considered to be Germany's top Middle East analyst. Her name is Muriel Asseberg. And she did an interview in 2015. So about roughly 10 years after I heard that German woman tell me that people in Germany are tired of hearing about the Holocaust. Now, Germany and Israel's relationship is almost completely, and I want to say completely, based on the Holocaust. Now, you could say, well, that's crazy, but it's not, because the fact that Germany almost exterminated all the Jews, it's for that reason that Germany is expected to be pro-Israel and to be friendly with Israel. Hey, you massacred these people. You massacred their grandparents. You massacred their great-grandparents. You need to be nice to them. That's pretty much what it comes down to when it comes to the German-Israeli relationship. Because before the end of World War II, the relationship between Germany and the Jews was, it would be an understatement to say that it wasn't very nice. Okay, it was genocidal. They genocided the Jews. So the Germans are expected to be nice. So what happens when the Germans stop caring about the Holocaust? Ask yourself that question. What happens when the Germans stop being concerned about the Holocaust? They're tired of hearing about the Holocaust. What happens? What happens then is that relationship between Germany and Israel deteriorates. Because at that point, it's who cares? At that point, it's who cares? Who cares about Israel? Well, we massacred their people. That's what we have to care. Who cares about the Holocaust? And I'll show you guys something. So here's the interview. Let me show you. I have to translate it through Google. Hold on one second. And by the way, guys, I love talking about this subject. I think it's just I think it's super fascinating to talk about history coming back to us. I think that's fascinating to see the things that we read about in books and to see the things that we thought only existed in history books at this point come alive. I think is it's a very surreal experience. It's a very, very surreal experience, guys. It's one of the reasons why I like playing video games, because it's like in video games you can see the ancient world alive in a virtual reality. So it's the only reason why I liked it to play Elden Ring, because in Elden Ring you kind of saw the ancient world, you know, in a fantastical animated image, but it was done in such an artistic way that it was beautiful to see the aesthetics of the game. So let's see here. Why is it still in German? Oh my god. Oh, I asked it to translate it in Dutch. No wonder it didn't work. Good lord. So translate this for me. I'm glad you could fix your computer problem, Rhoda. Today I'm going to Greek Orthodox Church to witness baptism of one of my client's sons. Oh, congratulations. Have a good time. All right, here it is in English. Let me see if I can get the window up. I'm trying to pull this document out of OBS, but I'm not. I'm trying to figure out how to do that. I thought that would be easy. Ah, okay, I got it. Here it is. All right, so here's the interview. This is from 2015. And this is an interview with Muriel Asseberg. I call her Asperg because it just sounds funny. Let me just increase the text a little bit here. Okay, so certain things that I want to show you guys in this interview. So she speaks of a gradual shift that has been going on in Germany. Let me show you here. So the interviewer asks her, I don't know if you can see this. Here it is. So the interviewer asks her, okay, so the time when Berlin was a kind of broker for Israeli interests in the EU is coming to an end. So the interviewer is asking her, like, do you think that this Israeli relationship between Germany and Israel, do you think that it is coming to an end or that it's disintegrating somehow? And Muriel Assaberg says, there is at least a gradual shift here. Now, she said this back in 2015, so that was years ago. Okay, that was over half a decade ago. But she says there is at least a gradual shift here, but so far, no fundamental change in Berlin's attitude. It is no longer the case that Berlin is always automatically on Israel's side. A common European stance often takes precedence here. So she's saying that there's a gradual shift. It's gradual. It's not fast. And it is gradual. There's a gradual shift. She says there's no fundamental change, meaning there's no major change. But nonetheless, it is no longer the case that Berlin is always automatically on Israel's side. So she connects this to the Holocaust, to Germany's view of the Holocaust. How does Germany see the Holocaust? So let's get into that real quick. So look what she says here. So she says, incidentally, let me see if you guys can see it. Hold on. Oh, here it is. So she says here, where my mouse is pointing, incidentally, this is an area in which opposing trends in education have a strong impact. While the significance of the Shoah, meaning the Holocaust, in the minds of citizens in Germany is decreasing, it remains a very strong constant in the Israeli education system. So what is she saying here? She's saying this in the context of Israel's and Germany's differing views on how Israel should go to war. Germany doesn't like it when Israel bombs the Palestinians. Israel doesn't really care because the Israelis have been attacked by Islamic terrorists, Palestinian Islamic terrorists. So the Israelis say, never again will we ever go through a Holocaust. This is why the Holocaust is such an unbreakable part of the Israeli psyche, the Israeli identity, and it should be this way, all right? I'm not condemning it. You know, for some reason, when you say things like this, people think you're condemning something. I'm not condemning it. I completely understand. I would have the same exact mentality if I was an Israeli. It would never leave my mind it would never leave my mind to remember the Holocaust. All right, and it's like going to somebody in Poland and telling them to forget about the fact that Hitler controlled Poland. Polish people, I don't think will ever forget about this, and neither should they. Polish people still remember what the communists did. Polish people still remember what the Nazis did. Polish people still remember what the Ukrainians did. It's a part of their identity. Going to Serbia, it's the same thing. The Serbs still talk about the Ustasha. The greatest massacre of Serbs ever done was done not by the Ottomans. It was done by the Ustasha, by Croatian Nazis. People who look like Serbs and who speak the same language as Serbs committed and ethnically speaking are the same people as the Serbs. They committed the greatest massacre of the Serbs. It wasn't the Ottomans. The Ottomans killed a lot of Serbian people, don't get me wrong. But it was the Ustasha who did the most horrendous violence to the Serbian people in the history of the Serbian people. And the Serbs have never forgotten it, and neither should they forget about it. So What she is saying here is that remembering the Holocaust is still a constant part of the Israeli identity. So in the Israeli mentality, a Holocaust should never happen again. That's where the saying comes from. Never again, right? Never again will we go through a Holocaust. So Hamas, ISIS, Iran, they want to do another Shoah. They want to do another Holocaust. And we will never allow this to happen. So we are so adamant about preventing another Shoah that we will bomb the Palestinians to make sure that they never, ever become confident that they can annihilate us. This is the Israeli mentality. So she is saying here, this Israeli mentality is connected to the Holocaust. But in Germany, we don't care so much about the Holocaust anymore. So what happens? This is very interesting. In the German mentality, it's never again will the Holocaust ever happen. So therefore, we have to use strong military force against the Palestinians. The German mentality is, we don't care so much about your Holocaust anymore, so why are you being so brutal with the Palestinians? Well, because of the Holocaust. The Holocaust that you assholes started. Yeah, but we don't really care so much about that anymore. So why are you guys being so mean? And this is the conundrum. This is the predicament that is occurring, that is transpiring. But this woman, Muriel Asselberg, she's saying, well, the Germans don't really care so much about the Shoah, and she doesn't care so much about it herself. In fact, I would argue that she doesn't care about the Holocaust at all. She don't give a damn. This woman doesn't give a damn about the Holocaust. Why? Muriel Asselberg is extremely pro-Palestine. And it's amazing. It's really amazing to see this happening. But she's extremely pro-Palestine. She's very influential. She is considered to be the top analyst for the German government when it comes to the Middle East. And she is saying that Palestinians have a right to resist Israeli occupation. She says, which means she's okay with terrorism. Because in the Palestinian mind, resist is to kill Israeli civilians. In her mind, Israel is responsible for war crimes. Yes, war crimes. According to Muriel Asselberg, Israel is responsible for war crimes. Okay. So what does she want to do? Let's go to another document here. This is very interesting, guys. A very fascinating topic. I think we're seeing history come alive. It's surreal. So what's happening in Israel? And this connects to what I'm talking about in regards to Europe. What's happening in Israel, this is a very fascinating topic. What's happening in Israel is you have the rise of extremism, Jewish extremism. It's not so as Islamic extremism continues on doing violence, which it has been doing for a long time, but as it gets worse in its violence, as we have already seen in October the 7th, as we already saw on October the 7th, Jewish extremism will increase. See, this is what I'm trying to tell you guys. Reprisals. You have Muslims doing violence because it gets to their head. Oh, look, we're so strong. And then there are the reprisals. And I'm not talking about bombing the Palestinians. I'm talking about full-scale massacres, like exterminating people. The Israelis right now are not interested in exterminating the Palestinians. If they were interested, they wouldn't be doing this hostage deal. They would not have done this hostage deal. And a lot of Israelis are pissed about this hostage deal that just was agreed upon, brokered by Qatar, by the way. So Jewish extremism is increasing. So eventually there's going to be tremendous violence between the Jews and the Arabs. We got a taste of this in 2021 when you had pogroms. You had Jewish extremists attacking Arabs in Israel. Israeli Arabs, not even Palestinians. They were attacking Israeli Arabs. They were attacking property. They were attacking vehicles. It was bad. It was nasty. It was ugly. That happened in 2021. So we got a taste of this already. You think it's going to get better? Obviously not. It hasn't gotten better. It hasn't been getting better, guys. It hasn't been getting better. So what's going to happen? Eventually, there's going to be an ocean of Semitic blood. By Semitic blood, I mean Arab blood and Jewish blood. They're going to kill each other on the streets. It's going to be unlike anything that we've seen. It's going to be unlike anything that happened in Israel's history. We talk about, it's gonna make October the 7th look minor, and October the 7th wasn't minor, but it's gonna make it look minor. The Jews will butcher the Arabs. Jewish extremists, not all the Jews, but the Jewish extremists, and vice versa. Muslims will attack the Jews. They're going to kill each other. And this is going to be the inevitable result of extremism intensifying on both sides. So if the Jews massacre the Arabs, and if they massacre the Palestinians, how will the world respond? That's the question. How will the world respond? The world is not just going to sit around and do nothing the whole time. Other countries will respond. Why? Not because other countries will have compassion, but because it's Machiavellian in its nature. Because other countries will see it as an opportunity to advance themselves. And that brings me to talk about Germany here. So let's talk about this paper that I read from Germany. The Germans are very much aware of the rise of Jewish extremism and how the Germans are going to have to get involved somehow in the Middle East. So let's pull out this link here. Hold on a second. So in 2017, and I can't, for some reason, I can't pull out the paper, but let me see if I can just Google it and get it. See you later, MRJCH24. Anyway, I can't find. I'm just going to read. I have the quote here. So there is a paper here. Let me just make sure you guys are connected. Anyway, yeah, here we go. So there is a paper from 2017 that was authored by Asseberg, Muriel Asseberg, and it's entitled "Shrinking Spaces in Israel." That's the name of the paper. And she talks about how extremism is rising up in Israel. And she says, quote, Israel has always claimed to be the only democracy in the Middle East. However, the current government coalition of right-wing, ultra-Orthodox, and national religious parties is dominated by forces that represent illiberal positions and want to accentuate Jewish dominance in the entire Eretz Israel, Israel and the occupied Palestinian territories. So she's not wrong. Jewish extremism is definitely increasing. So she says, how does Germany deal with this, right? So she goes on to write that, quote, Germany and the EU should work towards enforcing international law, improving the human rights situation, and preserving space for civil society to act against Israel. And then the question arises, how would Germany enforce international law on Israel without a strong military? How would Germany do that? If Germany is, let's say, because in the future, we have to remember, America is not going to be so much in control of Europe as it is now. Eventually, Germany is just going to be unleashed. So how is the EU going to go to Israel and tell the Israelis what to do unless Germany, let's say Germany, because the EU, we don't know what is going to become of the EU in the future. So let's just say Germany. Is Germany going to go to Israel without the strength of a military and tell the Israelis what to do? Why would Israel want to listen to Germany? So how is Germany going to enforce something? There's that word, enforce, without the capability to force. You cannot force a country to do something without the potential of violence. When America tells other countries what to do and those countries listen, those countries are always listening and they're always acquiescing to American demands under America's capability of force. Without force, there is no order. Without violence, there is no order. In order to bring order, you need to have at least the potential to do violence. This is why people listen to the police. This is why people respect laws. For the most part, they are people who respect laws because they just want to respect the law. Most people want to respect the law because they just want to respect the law. But you have people who don't want to respect the law, but they only respect it because of the potential of force. So that's one question that I have. And in a world that is no longer unipolar, but multipolar, which is what the future holds, how will Europe impose its hegemony on its Middle Eastern neighbor without the capability of force? Do you see? I'm going to get to your guys' comments and questions when I'm just done explaining this. I just want to continue with my train of thought. So, the paper written by Muriel Asseberg calls for, quote, a new paradigm for dealing with Gaza. A new paradigm. And she says, quote, in view of the escalation of the humanitarian situation in the Gaza Strip and the acute danger of a new outbreak of violence, Germany and its European partners will not leave regional conflict management to regional actors. In other words, the regional actors in this case are the Israelis and the Palestinians, the Israeli government and the so-called Palestinian government. And she's saying Germany in the future is not going to leave conflict management to the regional players. In other words, Germany is going to get involved. Germany wants to get involved in this stuff. It's not just that Germany says, okay, leave it to the Israelis and the Palestinians to deal with their problems. No, Germany wants to be involved. Germany in the future is going to want to intervene. This is what Asselberg is saying. So how will that look like? How do you do? You have to ask yourself the question, how do you do conflict management without the ability to keep the peace? And how do you keep the peace without a strong military? It's impossible. And I'm going to point you guys to another article that was written in December of 2021. It was published by the German Institute for International and Security Affairs, which is very influential. And the paper is entitled "The Need for New Concepts to Address Conflicts in Europe's Broader Southern Neighborhood." And it was written by Hurkan Asli Askoy, Wolfram Lacher, and Muriel Asselberg. And this is what the paper says. So this paper refers to Russian intervention in other countries, such as in Libya and Syria, as a response to the partial retreat of the American hegemon. The partial retreat of the American hegemon. Let me see if I can... Drives me crazy that I didn't put the link for this damn thing. Hold on a second. Okay, I found the paper. Awesome. It's in English. Okay, here it is. So I'm going to pull it out for you guys. So here we go. Let me just minimize myself here. So here is the paper, written in 2021, The Need for New Concepts to Address Conflicts in Europe's Broader Southern Neighbor. Now remember, and this is addressed to Vjeko Simic here. Vjeko Simic says Germany has a lot of money, maybe they don't need a military. That's impossible. You can have all the money in the world. You need a military if you want to be a force for global power. Like, it's just impossible. You can't have that without a military. Germany does have a lot of money. It's one of the most wealthiest nations in the world, so therefore they have the financial power to make a powerful military. Remember, Vjeko Simic, you live in Serbia, and in Serbia, during the war in the 1990s, between the Albanians and the Serbs and Kosovo, let's not forget that it was the Germans. And I know this because I've read about it, but I also, the person who informed me about this fact was somebody who fought in the war in the 1990s. He was a veteran of the Yugoslav military. It was the Germans who backed the KLA. It was the Germans who armed and trained the KLA. It was the Germans who were the most enthusiastic in the Western world about bombing the Serbs. It was the Germans who were pushing the Americans to do a military intervention. And that was Germany's way of awakening from the ashes of World War II. This was back in the 1990s, so World War II was still very fresh in people's minds. The Holocaust was extremely fresh in people's minds. But Germany wanted to awaken from its devastation, the devastation of its loss in World War II. And that was Germany's way of reawakening. America won't let them make a military. That is no longer the case. more and more, it is no longer the case that America won't allow Germany to make a military. And you're going to see it as the years go by. The Germans are going to make a very strong military, and you already see the Germans integrating their military with other Europeans. They have already integrated the Dutch military into the German military. You like the songs in the background? Me too. I love the music in the background. This is a group of musicians, 2 European musicians and 1 Turkish musician, and they are fusing kind of old Scandinavian folk style music with Turkish music. It's a really, really good fusion. So let's go back. And the thing is that the Balkans are in the south. They're part of Germany's southern neighborhood. So the Germans are thinking, okay, America is going to recluse itself from its position as the world's police. What is Germany going to do? That is the question. But that's the question. What is Germany going to do? If America is not there to run the world, and you no longer have a unipolar world, which is what the Russians want. The Russians want the unipolarity to end. They don't want a unipolar world anymore, because the Russians know once you no longer have a unipolar world, then Russia can have more space to do what it wants. But if you don't have America there, you have to ask yourself the question. Let's say you're Germany, you have to ask yourself, what do we do? What do we do? We have to counter the Russians. We have to make ourselves to be a superpower again. So we have to look at the Middle East. We have to look at Southern Europe. We have to look at Eastern Europe. So there's some very interesting stuff here. So I'm going to show you guys something. So it talks about the partial retreat of the United States. They are responding. So she's talking about these authors, especially Muriel Asselberg here. She says, Russia and a growing number of regional powers are increasingly willing to intervene in conflict hotspots from Syria to Libya, from the Caucasus to the Horn of Africa and the Central African Republic. They are responding to the partial retreat of the American hegemon while also actively pushing back on the influence of the United States. So the retreat, now this is the line that I'm focusing on here, the partial retreat of the American hegemon. In other words, Russia is rising because America is retreating. So what happens when America is gone as a hegemon? What happens? Germany has to become a superpower. It's just that simple. Nobody wants to talk about this because it's scary, or it just sounds crazy, right? And nobody wants to be seen as scary, or nobody wants to be seen as crazy. Oh, you're crazy, talking about the revival of Germany. Well, listen, when I was in high school, nobody thought that Geert Wilders was going to get anywhere. Now Geert Wilders is dominating the Dutch parliament. Nobody thought that Vox party would get anywhere. Now Vox is one of the biggest parties in Spain. Sweden Democrats were seen as far-right nutcases, far-right extremists. Now they're the second biggest party in Sweden. The world is changing. The world that we got accustomed to, which formed after the Second World War, that world is ending. That's the bottom line, guys. That world is ending. So Vehicle Simic says, remember, yeah, I remember, but they didn't have a real army in Kosovo. But that's not my point. I didn't say they had a real army. I said they backed the KLA, which they did. And my point is that that was their way of slowly creeping out from their their position as a defeated nation. That was their way of slowly coming out and trying to have some influence in the Balkans. You got to start somewhere. America sent an actual, and America was, Germany was pushing America to bomb Serbia. I love the reference to the Lord of the Rings. With this music in the background, it's just perfect. I love it. I love it. Reminds me of the Lord of the Rings and when Elrond says to Gandalf in private, "My people, the elves, are leaving these shores. Who will you look to after we're gone?" Yeah, that's beautiful. Reminds me of Elden Ring. Oh yeah. So let's look at some more stuff here. We're having a very good discussion, guys. This is a very good conversation. We have Simic, we have people quoting Lord of the Rings. This is fun. We're having a good Friday night here. People say, "Ted, why aren't you married?" If I were married, I wouldn't be able to do these Friday live streams without somebody, without some kind of hindrance possibly coming up. Oh, we have a date night or something like that. If we have date nights on Friday, I won't be able to do these Friday streams. I'll have to do it on Wednesday night or some lame day like that. And who the hell wants to go through that? I don't. So anyway, so check this out. So she talks about different policies, etc. Let's see here. So it says here, the current conflicts in Europe's broader southern neighborhood reveal a deep crisis of regional orders amid an emergency multipolarity. Effective conflict transformation in the broader southern neighborhood is in Germany's. Now check this out. This is very interesting. Effective conflict transformation in the broader southern neighborhood is in Germany's own interest in order to avert negative repercussions and provide a convincing alternative to the offers of illiberal actors. In other words, the South is full of conflict, the Middle East, so Germany has to be a force for stability. So there's a lot of violence in the Middle East. But what is the area of the Middle East that the whole world focuses on more than any other place in the Middle East? It's Israel. That is the area of the Middle East that the whole world focuses on. You could have a war between the Arabs and the Houthis. You could have a war between the Syrians. You could have war between the Lebanese civil war. You could have horrific violence taking place in Iraq. Nothing grabs the world's attention when it comes to the Middle East more than a war between Israelis and Palestinians. There's nothing. There was a brutal war between the Saudis and the Yemenis. How many thousands upon thousands of people starved to death because the Houthis were stealing the food that was going into Yemen? So when it comes to the Middle East, what do people focus on more than anything else? It's the Israelis versus the Palestinians. So here she is, and this woman is obsessed with Israel. This Muriel Asseberg woman. Am I pronouncing her name correctly? Sorry. Muriel Asseberg. She's obsessed with Israel. She talks about Israel more than any other country when it comes to her Middle East analysis. So she says, okay. She says here. Sorry, hold on. Civil wars in the broader southern neighborhood are unlikely to give way to lasting peace if human rights violations and war crimes are not dealt with by the actors involved. So she sees the Middle East as Germany's southern neighborhood. So if Germany needs to focus on stopping conflict in its southern neighborhood, the Middle East, what conflict do you think Germany is going to focus on more than anything else? It would be a conflict between Jews and Arabs. And so she is saying that Germany is going to, with America, leaving its position, with America retreating, with the unipolar world breaking down, with the world becoming more and more of a multipolar world, Germany has to focus on conflict resolution in its southern neighborhood. And I have to really put a lot of effort into explaining this because what I'm predicting here, what I'm talking about here, is something that no one really thinks about, and that is Germany being involved in another Holocaust in the future. And in order to really explain this to people, you gotta show information. You gotta really break things down. Civil wars in the broader southern neighborhood are unlikely to give way, etc., etc. There is a need to deter potential criminals, etc., etc. So again, she sees the Israeli government as guilty of war crimes. And so she says here, in such cases, the international community can contribute to investigation of and accountability for crimes. One feature of internationalized conflicts is that prosecution by the International Criminal Court or international special tribunals is often impossible because permanent members of the UN Security Council are involved, etc., etc. So she's saying that we really can't rely on the ICC. So what do we do? So she says Germany could take a pioneering role in several respects. First, by consistently supporting the prosecution of alleged war crimes, etc., etc. Okay, let's fast forward here. Third, by supporting court-proof documentation of war crimes by civil society and international organizations, etc., etc. And by expanding the capacity of its own law enforcement agencies. So Germany can expand its law enforcement agencies into other countries. Such a pioneering role would correspond both to Germany's interest for lasting stability in its broader neighborhood and its interest in strengthening a rules-based multilateral order. It would entail a greater emphasis on criminal justice and thus a relocation of resources. Criminal prosecutions, especially in complex conflicts, are anything but low-hanging fruit that can be readily reaped, etc., etc. And look what she says here. Germany can only credibly act as a pioneer if it consistently fulfills this role. This implies that criminal prosecutions do not stop with the nationals of friendly states. See, for example, the ICC investigation into suspected war crimes in the Palestinian territories. So she's talking about how Germany can expand its law enforcement into its broader southern neighborhood, the Middle East, to stop war crimes and to bring war criminals to justice. And look at what she brings as an example. War crimes in the Palestinian territories, which is a reference to the Israeli government. So and I know this is very difficult for people to think about because the idea of Germany coming back and being scary again is inconceivable to most people. We reduce that historical thought to movies, Schindler's List, things like that. But if you think about the future and think about what the future holds, we can actually see that the idea of a revived Germany, even against the Jewish people, is not far-fetched or adventuresome. And I don't have like this white paper leaked out. It says, oh yeah, this is what's gonna happen and blah blah. Like I don't have that with me, right? I don't have that with me. But I'm simply trying to put the pieces together here, and then coming to some sort of not a conclusion, because none of this is really it's not conclusive because it hasn't happened. But we can come to, I think, an educated guess as to what can happen. I'm going to change the music here a little bit, guys. We're going to go to So think about this. Think of it this way. Think of it like this. Imagine in the future you have a world that is not under the American hegemony as much anymore, right? America has retreated. America has gone back to its old legacy of isolationism. What's going to happen? You have, on top of this, Jewish extremism, Islamic extremism. Jews and Arabs are killing each other. Germany used to have a great empire. Germany is in competition with Russia. Russia wants the Middle East. Germany sees the Middle East as its southern neighbor. Violence between Arabs and Jews would then be seen as an opportunity for the Germans to intervene in the Middle East, and under the pretense of bringing stability and being a force for peace, Germany enters Israel, and it does so to support the Palestinians. This is just a scenario that I could see happening. From there, Germany, backed with its ally Turkey, commences to do another Holocaust. Commences to resume another Holocaust. Sounds crazy. It sounds absolutely mad, right? To a lot of people, this sounds mad, but the Holocaust sounds crazy. It's amazing. If we were living in the 1920s and I told you that the Germans are going to exterminate the Jews, you would think that I was crazy, right? You would think you're crazy because the Jews in Germany had a very comfortable life. Jews living in Germany a lot of them were very successful. They had good lives. And the Jews in Germany would have thought that you were crazy. The Jews living in Germany would have thought that you were crazy if you would tell them that. I know this because years ago I read a book called Days of Our Years. Days of Our Years. I read a little bit of another book called The Forgotten Ally. Both of these books were written by the same author. His name is Pierre van Passen. He was a Dutch journalist who interviewed Hitler when Hitler was campaigning for his election in Germany. And Pierre van Passen interviewed Adolf Hitler after one of his campaign speeches. Sounds crazy, I know, but this is what happened. And Pierre van Passen spoke with Hitler and confronted Hitler on his anti-Jewish sentiment. And Hitler looked at Pierre van Passen and yelled at him and said, "How can you, as a Dutchman, as an Aryan, support the Jews?" Pierre van Passen, after this interview, he eventually went to New York City, and he was invited to speak for a major synagogue in New York. And while he was speaking in the synagogue, he told the audience, "I spoke with Adolf Hitler and I looked at his eyes, and I can tell you right now, he is going to take power in Germany, and under him, every Jewish tombstone will be shattered within 10 years under the Third Reich." He said this to a crowd of Jews in New York City in a synagogue. After the speech, somebody approached Pierre van Passen and said, "A man wants to speak with you." So he went to this other room in the synagogue, and there was a Jewish man in the room who was very wealthy, and he told Pierre van Passen, "I listened to your speech, and I can say right now that I completely disagree with what you are saying." And Pierre van Passen said, "Well, why do you say that?" And this man said to him, Because Germany is still Germany. Civilization will always be civilization. Germany will always be Germany. Germany will not turn into this savage, barbarian country that you say it will become. And that was it. And that man was dead wrong. People thought it was crazy for Passon to say those things. But as Veljko Simic says here, a wolf changes its fur, but never its temper. Old Serbian saying. Yeah, absolutely. And I want to show you guys some other things here. So this woman is saying, Asseberg, she is saying, Germany should go into its southern neighbor to stop war criminals and to stop war crimes. How do you do that without a military? How do you do that? She says we can expand our law enforcement agency into other countries. How do you do that without a strong military? That's like saying America's going to go into Somalia to stop General Adid, to bring him to justice. General Adid was a war criminal. America could not have gone into Mogadishu without a military. It's impossible. And she is saying, oh, we have to stop war crimes. And she lists as an example war crimes in the Palestinian territories. That is basically a way of it's a sneaky way to say Germany should enter Israel in the name of fighting war crimes. Well, when have we heard that kind of tactic? Let's go into Iraq in the name of fighting terrorism. Turkey says, let's go into Syria in the name of fighting Kurdish terrorists and fighting Bashar al-Assad. That was Turkey's way of expanding. Germany said, let's support the KLA. You mean just like Germany supported Albanian fascists during the Second World War? You mean just like Germany supported Croatian and Bosnian nationalists during the Second World War? Yeah, just like that. A repetition of history. And didn't the Germans in World War I do a similar thing in the Balkans? So you see Germany doing this in World War I, World War II, and in the 1990s? This is like saying one day the Vatican's not going to be gay anymore. Oh yeah, the whole pedophile problem in the Vatican, that's gone. Yeah, you go ahead and believe that. So I'm going to show you guys some other things. Now check this one out. This is interesting. Let me see if I can find this here. And I'm putting this all together in a paper so that you guys can read it when I'm done. So paradigm for Gaza. I think this is it here. Okay. So I want to read to you guys another. Let me see something here. Hold on. All right. I want to show you guys another document here. I just had to get it translated into English real quick because it's in German. So I want to show you guys this paper here. All right. So I want to show you guys this paper. Let me increase it a little bit here because the text is super small. Oh, that's really convenient. So in this paper, this is called. Let me just show you the. Oh damn! I gotta go all the way up. Let me show you. This is another think tank paper that I found. This is damn. Shrinking spaces in Israel. So this is talking about German policy in Israel. I gotta play my my Germanic music. Not this. Dang it! What is this? Oh, okay. Yeah, here it is. Wait, this is not the one. Okay, here it is. Here it is, guys. So she calls for a paradigm shift. A new paradigm shift in dealing with Gaza. And she says here, let me find it real quick. Okay, in view, let me make sure that camera's got this. No, it does not got it. And that's why I check it. In view of the worsening humanitarian situation in the Gaza Strip and the acute danger of a new one, the outbreak of violence, should Germany and its European partners will not, blah, blah, blah. Okay, I already read this to you guys. So basically Germany will not leave it to regional actors. Germany will get involved. There's something else I want to show you guys here. A change, okay. Isn't there a part that I want to show you guys here real quick? GRM. Okay, there is a change of paradigm is needed. A change of paradigm is needed. It should not be a matter of simply making the GRM. And the GRM is the Gaza reconstruction mechanism. In other words, allowing products to go into Gaza. So it should not be a matter of simply making the GRM less susceptible to corruption, but rather of protecting the rights of the residents of the coastal strip. In other words, Germany should protect the rights of the Palestinians in Gaza. To protect and develop will henceforth be given priority. To protect and develop will henceforth be given priority over the security interest of the occupying power. Well, who is the occupying power? Israel. So she is saying Germany must protect the Palestinians, even if that means undermining the security of Israel. What does that look like? What does undermining the security of Israel look like? What does it look like? Could be supporting terrorists. And the Germans, they want to increase their military. So when it talks about, protecting the Gazans against Israel, what would that mean? That would mean showing a strong military force. That would mean having the capability to use a strong military force. Let's look more into this again. I want to show you guys another paper here. So this is from, I'm going to show you guys real quick. Hold on. I'm going to show you guys real quick. A new power, new responsibility. Elements of a German foreign and security policy for a changing world. The world is changing, guys. They know it. They say it right here. The world is changing. This was published by the Stiftung Wissenschaft und Politik, which is like the German defense. Let me think. Hold on. German, like, hold on. I want to get this right here. It was published by the German Institute for International and Security Affairs. So when it says Stiftung Wissenschaft und Politik, that just simply means German Institute for International and Security Affairs, and it was also published by the German Marshall Fund of the United States, or the GMF. New power, new responsibility. So look what it says here. It speaks of the use of military force. Use of military force. The domestic dimension of German foreign policy. Look what it says here. This is pretty amazing. Let me increase the... Let me see. Can you guys see that? Okay, you guys can see that. The domestic dimension of German foreign policy. German foreign policy will continue to deploy the full range of foreign policy instruments, from diplomacy, foreign aid, and cultural policy to the use of military force. So the Germans, they want to have the capability to use military force. How are the Germans going to be a force of stability and peace in the Middle East without a strong military? And because the Germans sympathize with the Palestinians, because they don't care so much about the Holocaust anymore, could this then mean Germany intervening in Israel in the case of tremendous ethnic and religious violence in Israel and in the West Bank to protect the Palestinians against the Jews? And would that then lead to the resuming of the Holocaust of the Jews by the Germans with their ally Turkey beside them? That's the question. And I know this sounds crazy, but when you look at the history and when you look at the projection for the future as far as the revival of German power, I think it is an important thing to talk about. I think it's an important concern to have. There's another part here that I want to show you guys. So it goes on to say, let's see here. Violate basic international. Let me show you. Violate. Okay. So it talks about spoiler states here, and it says, however, where spoiler states questions the international order, where they violate basic international norms, and the Germans can say this about Israel, such as the genocide prohibition or the prohibition of the use of weapons of mass destruction, where they lay claims to or even attack the common or the critical infrastructure of globalization. In other words, where offers of compromise or dispute resolutions are made in vain, Germany must be willing and able to use military power within the framework of collective measures sanctioned by international law in order to be able to protect these goods, norms, and collective interest. So it's saying right there, in the case of countries that are breaking international law, that don't want to compromise, that are just bad, Germany must be willing to use its military. So if Germany sees, just think with me. I don't know, it doesn't agree. Some of you guys don't agree with me. Think with me here. You have a world that is no longer unipolar, it's multipolar. Germany revived as a power. Germany is leading its European bloc. It sees Arabs being massacred by Jewish extremists in Israel. It sees chaos. And then Germany says, the Middle East is our neighbor. It's part of our realm. We have to protect the Palestinians. That would mean German soldiers in Israel. That's what that would mean. That's what that would mean. I don't see... And given that history of the Holocaust, given that history, who's to say that a Holocaust won't happen again in Israel? And you will have the Germans and their Turkish ally doing another massacre. Sounds crazy. Okay. I'm going to read some more of the stuff to you guys. I'm going to read some more stuff here. Let's go back to that paper. Pragmatic. Oh wait, this is not the paper. Hold on. Where did it go? Okay, so I'm going to read something else to you guys. Here's another part of this article. So here's another part of this article here. The growth of Germany's power and influence mean that it must also exercise greater responsibility. For decades, Germany was a consumer of security guaranteed by NATO and especially by the United States. Today, its allies and patterns expect Germany to become a provider of security, and not only for itself. So Germany is beginning to change its focus. Its focus from focusing on itself to focusing on others as well. For all these reasons, German security policy can no longer be conceived otherwise than globally. So Germany has to have a global view. That said, Germany's history, its location, and scarce resources are reasons to be judicious about its specific strategic objectives. This also means that a pragmatic German security policy, especially when costly, longer-term military operations are called for, will have to concentrate primarily on the increasingly unstable European vicinity from northern Africa and the Middle East to Central Asia. So Germany wants to expand its hegemony into the Middle East. Right there, they're saying it. I'm going to read to you guys one more thing here. Now check this one out. The need for consultation and at the strategic level will only grow, and here too the United States will expect far more input from Europe and Germany. On the military operational level, however, the Europeans will have to get used to the idea that the United States will not only assume a leadership role less often. In other words, we have to expect that America is not going to be the world's police officer as much anymore, but will also want to participate in fewer joint missions. In other words, we're leaving it up to Germany to be a superpower. Europe and Germany must therefore develop formats for NATO operations that rely less on U.S. contributions. This requires greater investment in military capabilities and more political leadership. Europe in particular will have to provide more security in its own neighborhood. And by neighborhood, it's not talking about just Europe. This is also the Middle East. This is Europe's unique responsibility, and Germany will have to make an investment that is commensurate with its strength. So there you go. They're saying it right there. They're saying we can't rely on America in the future. Germany has to become powerful again. Let's see. And I want to read to you guys one last quote about this. I'm going to change the music here a little bit. Oh, God. What is up with this internet? Why isn't the internet working? All right, I think we're good. Yeah, the stream had a freeze there. Hello, hello. Yeah, the stream had a freeze. Okay, I think we're good. So let's go back. So I want to read to you guys one last quote on this issue. And then I'm going to get a drink. And I'm going to read your guys' comments. Okay. Here is a quote from Florian Schoen. Florian Schoen. Let me show you guys this article. Florian Schoen So Florian Schoen wrote this article. He is an officer in the German military's General Staff Service. And he wrote this in 2021. He said, let me show you guys the quote here. So he says, he wrote this article. It's titled, The Key Elements Paper on the Bundeswehr. Bundeswehr is the German Army of the Future. Necessary Adaptations to Security Policy Challenges. Violence and the threat of violence to enforce interest is once again a political reality in Europe. Okay. Do I have to repeat that line? I'm going to repeat that line. Violence and the threat of violence to enforce interest is once again a political reality in Europe. In other words, we have to have the capability to inflict violence. The annexation of Crimea, the Russian military's deployment near the border with Ukraine, and propaganda videos of new weapons systems provide evidence of this development. In Syria, with Russia's help, a brutal war is being waged against the population. Also with the calculation of using the refugee movement migrating towards Europe to destabilize the European Union. Meanwhile, China's influence is growing far beyond Asia. Russian and Chinese actions are similar, and cooperation between the two countries are becoming closer. Violent extremism is spreading in Africa. Under the impact of these events and trends, Germany is once again focusing more on national and collective defense, but the boundaries with international crisis management are becoming increasingly blurred. So in other words, the world is becoming more violent. Germany has to become militarily capable to deal with these problems. So we have the rise of Turkey, the rise of Germany, the retreat of American power, the rise of Jewish extremism, Islamic extremism as well. We have the inevitability of Arab-Jewish violence in the Middle East, in Israel. We have Germany seeing the Middle East as its vicinity, as its southern vicinity. We have Turkey wanting to control the Middle East. We have Russia also wanting to control the Middle East. What's happening right now, guys, is the buildup of a world war between the very countries who were fighting each other and who were involved in World War I and World War II. That's what's happening. And they had a Holocaust of the Jews in World War II. The Turks want to massacre the Jews. They want to invade Israel. They want to massacre Israel. They want to do another Holocaust. Germany already did a Holocaust 80 years ago. That wasn't very long ago. My grandmother was alive, and she's still alive. So who's to say that the Germans won't go back to their old ways? With the rise of nationalism in the midst of all this, it's very scary. It's very scary. Now, let's get to your guys' comments and questions. I will make Israel like a trembling cup to all the nations. Absolutely. That's right. If America withdraws from Europe, there will be again a fight for dominance between EU nations. That's right. At least it looks like that to me. I believe you, yeah. European nations, I think, will fight each other. If he was married, he would need a lot more burdock. Absolutely. If he was married, he would be an alcoholic. Wow. That sounds kind of dark. Who knows what Russia would do in that scenario? Well, didn't the Russians save the Jews during the Holocaust? I think the Russians will do the same thing in the future. Noah says, also, you're talking as if the Israelis don't have a say in what happens on their land. You think Israel is just going to allow foreign troops to invade their territory and not put up stiff resistance? I'm not saying that they're just going to allow people to go in. I think there's going to be a war. I think Israel is going to be invaded. That's what I think is going to happen. Just like you had a civil war between the Jews and the Romans went to war with the Jews, with the Judeans, and the Romans defeated them. And the Romans massacred 1 million Jews in the Judeo-Roman War. So I'm not saying that they're just going to allow them to come in. They're going to come in. The Turks, at least, and maybe the Iranians are going to come in, and they're going to have a Holocaust. The Jews are going to lose a war. That's what I think is going to happen. Russia has a really good player at this game, their president. Vieko Simic says, no, it doesn't sound crazy. I don't think it sounds crazy at all. I mean, given the history. Noah says, this is 2023, not 1923. Well, before the Holocaust, there was a wealthy Jewish man who told the Dutch journalist, Pierre van Passen, who was warning about the rise of Germany. Civilization is still civilization. Germany will always be Germany. I mean, you are repeating the same mistake that people said in the past. Well, you know what? I'm not going to say mistake, because it could be that you are right and I'm wrong. I could be wrong, and maybe I'll have egg in my face. But I think that it's a mistake to automatically assume that Germany will be a good guy in the future. Just as it was a mistake to think that Hitler wasn't going to be a genocidal dictator. How does any of this sound any different from what the U.S. has been doing in the Middle East for the past 20 years? That's true. It doesn't sound that different. But nonetheless, we already know what to expect from the American Empire because we've been living under the American Empire for decades. Looking at Germany's history, do you really want Germany to be running the Middle East? Do you really want Germany to have an empire We saw the results of this in World War I and World War II. The Germans took over a lot of territory in World War I. The Germans took over a ton of territory in World War II. Look at what the Germans did in the Balkans. Look at what the Germans did in Eastern Europe. Look at what the Germans did in Central Europe. Look at what the Germans did in Northern Europe. This is like saying, you know, how does this sound so different from... Well, let me just rephrase. You say, how does it sound different from America? Well, not much. The only difference is that it's talking about Germany, not America. Two different countries. I'm not saying America is perfect, but living under America is a lot better than living under Germany. Looking at the history. Italy ends up reviving the Holy Roman Empire. Nice background music. Yeah, I love it. Okay, let's get to drinks, guys. I've done enough talking. I've been streaming for 3.5 hours. Let's get something to drink. 1 second. All right, guys. Let's get to some beer. So I talked for 3.5 hours. I didn't want to drink beer while talking about this subject because I want to be as sober as possible when talking about this. So for this stream's Friday night stream's drink, we'll be having what is arguably the best cheap American beer, Pabst Blue Ribbon. This, in my opinion, is the best cheap American beer that you can buy. There's a lot of different cheap American beers. You know, we have your Budweiser, Budweiser's not cheap, but Bud Light, Miller Lite, Coors Light, Keystone Light, Natural Ice. These are all very cheap, super cheap. Miller High Life. These are all very cheap American beers, but there's one American beer that's very cheap, and it's really good. It's called Pabst Blue Ribbon. It's a cheap beer that doesn't exactly taste like a cheap beer. It doesn't taste like a Miller High Life or Coors Light. It is has a very good flavor. It's somewhat. It's very malty. It has a nice malt flavor to it. Good texture. So it's a great cheap beer. I got a 12-pack for like $11. And that's actually not bad considering the fact that they are now selling 6-packs of certain brands of beer for that same price. So you have beers that are more expensive that they're selling for $11 for a 6-pack of. So you have certain beers that are more expensive, and so they charge you $11 just to get 6 of those beers. Well, for $11, I can get 12 of these. So this is Pabst Ribbon. Let's get some music for drinking. I'm thinking of last week I played Elden Ring. I played Limgrave, the music from Limgrave. Let's play. I love the music from Lindell. The soundtrack. Let's see here. I love the music from Lindell. I think the Lindell song is probably the best in Elden Ring. So let's give that a listen. Yeah, Pabst is a very good and very cheap. Yeah, it's a very good beer and it's cheap. And that's why Pabst Blue Ribbon was so popular amongst hipsters for so long. So, beautiful color. It's good to smell. Smells very nice. Has a nice yeasty aroma. Nice texture. Let's give this a drink. Delicious. That is a good beer. Pabst Blue Ribbon. It is one of the best beers. Surely one of the best beers I've ever tried. When it comes to American beers, you can't go wrong with Yuengling. What's it called? Miller Banquet. What's it called? Was it Miller Banquet? No, not Miller. Coors Banquet. Yeah, you can't. When it comes to American beers, Yuengling, Coors Banquet, and Shiner and Pabst Blue Ribbon. Those to me are the best American beers. Probably if I had to choose one American beer that was really good, I'd probably have to go with a Coors Banquet. Coors Banquet is really good. Michelob is excellent. Can't go wrong with those beers. Hell, you know, this is going to sound kind of crazy. Keystone Light. Keystone Light. Great beer. Keystone Light. Great beer. The worst beer I've ever tasted, ever, was Guinness. No, I've heard that if you go to Ireland and drink Guinness, like, it's really good. But the Guinness that I've tasted in America is disgusting. It's way too sweet to be called a beer. I really like Pabst Blue Ribbon. I love Shiner, Coors Banquet. These are all great beers. How about a Sam Adams? Sam Adams is okay. It doesn't. I mean, it's okay. Wasn't bad. Wasn't bad. I haven't tried Busch. I tried I think Keystone Light is a pretty good. I like Keystone. All right, guys. I'm enjoying the atmospheric music. Genenice Cream Ale. This is the soundtrack for Elden Ring, which is a video game. Am I gonna see Napoleon eventually? Yeah, probably. I'll probably get some pirated version online. Is it a good movie? Has anyone seen Napoleon? Is it a good film? Is it worth seeing, or is it just nonsense? I think I hope it's good. I'm gonna see it tomorrow. Elden Ring was overrated. It's basically another Dark Souls game. I agree. I think it is an overrated game. The problem with Elden Ring is that it was kind of it was a boring game. I mean, it's a boring game. I do like this music. Music is good. I heard it sucks. Yeah, that's why I don't have high expectations myself. I recently saw a French Canadian film about the Lebanese Civil War. It's called Incendies. Beautifully directed movie. Really a beautifully directed film. Can I recommend 2 games I think you'll enjoy? Ghosts of Tsushima and the Dark Pictures anthology House of Ashes. Alright, man. I actually wanted to play Tsushima. I have not looked into Dark Anthology, though. That sounds interesting. I'll write down the name of the film. Hold on. This film came out in 2010. I think it's a beautifully directed film that shows the brutalities of the Lebanese Civil War. Beautifully directed movie. I love how it was shot. It was directed by the same guy who directed Sicario 1 and 2, which were both brilliant movies. See you later, Simchis. Oh, we're getting into music recommendations. All right, here we go. Roy Scop Monument, TIE version. All right, let's give this a listen. Yeah, I definitely want to play that game, the Ghost of Tsushima. It looks like a really good game. All right, here we go.
Make a space for my body. Dig a hole, push the sides apart. This is what I'm controlling. It's the mold, the inside that I carve. This will be my monument. This will be the beacon when I'm gone, when
Not a bad song.
I'm gone, when I'm gone, so that when the moment comes, I can say I did it all with love, 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 all with love, love, love.
It's not a bad song. I gave it like a 4 out of 10. I was looking at the gameplay for this Dark Anthology game. Can you shoot the terrorists or whatever? It's like a movie, the game. It's like you're directing the film kind of thing. Any other songs to recommend, or are we gonna call it a night, guys? Dreams Stay Out of the Blue. Alright, here we go. This band, by the way, makes good songs. Goose Hunter introduced me to them. They make pretty good songs. They make good music. This is a good band. I like this. Not bad. Not a bad song. I give it like a 5 out of 10. Conquer Divide, Playing with Fire. Okay, let's give this a listen. Nice.
Bloodshot eyes, you say it's hard, I know. You took your will to fight and now you're in denial.
is good. I like it. Getting good like Evanescence vibes with this. I give it like a 5 out of 10. Play Dead Pirates UGO. Okay, here we go. It's okay. It's like kind of like pot smoking music, but it's okay. I give it like a 3 out of 10. Anything else, guys? I think I'm done. As everything unfolds, all I ever know. Okay, let's give this a listen. Oh, this is nice. I like this. I like this.
My horror and this dishonor. Judgment doesn't look good on you. Your jury doesn't seem fair to me. A virtue signal sitting in the middle. Are you listening? Humbling my mistakes. Remedy I cry. I wish I didn't need to know. Didn't need to know better. Leaving space to grow. All I've ever known. All I've ever
Nice. I like it. This is really good. I'm going to save this one. This is like a, early. It's a good rhythm. I like it. Stream music. Yes. All right. Let's play the next one here. As the World Falls Down by David Bowie. Oh, here we go. Yep. Here we go with that oldies but goodies construction site music. I don't like it. It's too limpy for me. You have a very late 90s, early 2000s taste. Yeah, pretty much. Pretty much. That's my time. That's when I was growing up, so All right, guys, I think I'm done. I've been streaming for 4 hours now, so I think we're good to go. Have a good weekend. God bless you all. Be well. You guys just heard some theology. God bless.